Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, the game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live today from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
Are you excited for the Viking game on Sunday? Brian Callahan met with the media today, and they, previewed the Viking game. Are you excited for the Viking game?
I mean, I guess so. Sure. It's a game. There's only so many games we have. We got to savor them all.
I guess. I mean, I think at this point, it's kind of like one of those Chicago White Sox baseball seasons. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. Turn on MLB Network if you get it. I don't get it anymore on YouTube TV. But if you get it, turn on, I was going to say, Baseball Tonight, but that doesn't really exist anymore either. And I don't think there are any White Sox games on local TV, not until the White Sox maybe move here. But if you look at the crowd in August of a White Sox game when they're not playing the Cubs or like the Yankees. So they're playing the Cleveland Guardians. And you will see that there is not one person that is at the ballpark. Not one. Not one soul in the third largest city in America. Not one soul is like, you know what? I want to go see the White Sox play the Guardians today at 2:00 in the afternoon. There's no buzz. And that's kind of how I feel about the Titan-Viking game on Sunday. I mean, there's going to be a ton of Viking fans there, and there are going to be some Titans fans there that, I go every week and support my team, but we've all kind of moved on to next year. Kind of is what it is. So there are kind of two sets of people. We ran a poll earlier in the week. How many people, who should be fired for this season? And again, we offered 4 options, but 64% of the people say Rand should be fired, and 46% of the people say Brian Callahan should be fired. 39% of the people think they both should be fired. So keep that in mind. But there is, again, if 64% of the people think Rand should be fired and roughly 50% of the people think Brian Callahan should be fired, that means that there is 36% of the people that think Rand should keep his job, and there are 54% of the people, good math right there, thank you, that think that Brian Callahan should keep his job. The point, I guess I'm making here, is there is an argument on both sides. The argument for the Rand needs another year crew is we'll give it one more year, and if it's not better next year, then Jared, you can have your way and you can clean house. Is that right, distinguished gentlemen? That once you guys are saying, give it another year. And after a year, if it's terrible, then you can go ahead and move on. That does seem like kind of the agreement that they're trying to make here. I got a wrench to throw into that. So Albert Breer was on NBC Sports Boston. He is one of the lead insiders for Sports Illustrated's Monday Morning Quarterback. He also is the lead insider for Amazon's Thursday Night Football. I like Bert. I don't think he's the most knowledgeable guy in the world. I don't sit there and say, oh my God, Breer said, but I think Breer's connected inside the league, and Breer's got sources, and Breer talks to people. And so Breer was talking about the potential of the Patriots having a top pick. And this is what he is hearing the consensus inside the league is about these top picks and top quarterbacks in this year's draft.
The quarterback class didn't look great coming into the year. Sometimes you have a guy explode, like Jaden Daniels did last year through the year, and you see the stock go through the roof. I don't know if that's happening right now. Carson Beck hasn't played well. Shedeur Sanders has been really good, but there are some questions on him. Quinn Ewers hasn't really taken the next step that some people would have hoped he would have. So that's the first piece of it too. When you're talking about where the Patriots could be drafting in the top 5, is there value to trade out because there's a quarterback available that somebody's going to come and get? I'm not sure that that's going to exist for them. And then, beyond even that, I think with some of the guys at other positions, you haven't seen these breakthroughs that you would hope. You really don't have the super elite prospect at the top of the draft. I don't think this is a great year to have a top 5 pick.
Okay. So not only is it the quarterbacks that may not be that good, but there may not be a super elite player at the top of this draft. Think Aiden Hutchinson. Think Myles Garrett. Think that kind of player. Because, again, I think on one hand, the sentiment is let Rand and Brian Callahan go draft Shedeur Sanders. Let them draft Cam Ward. Let them get a quarterback. Or and I heard the midday show talking about this a lot, and there's been some buzz since Sam Darnold will be in town this week. Go draft some superstar that's going to be a superstar edge rusher, superstar wide receiver, superstar whatever. Travis Hunter, I don't know. Go draft that guy, sign Sam Darnold, and let him cook, baby. And again, Breer's telling you, this isn't a good year to have a high pick. Meanwhile, the draft gurus have come out with their big boards. Dane Brugler in The Athletic. Cam Ward, 16. Jalen Milroe, 22. Shedeur Sanders, 23. Mel Kiper Jr. has come out with his big board. Shedeur Sanders, 11. Cam Ward, 12. Let's say the gurus are right. And, of course, it is without saying that in 2021, everybody told us this was an unbelievable quarterback class, whether it was Lawrence or Fields or the year that Mac Jones had. Zach Wilson was the number 2 overall pick. San Francisco, with their quarterback guru coach, traded 3 first-round picks to draft Trey Lance, and it's been an abomination. Even Lawrence kind of sucks. And in 2017, I remember after the national championship game, Mel Kiper Jr. was saying, it's still not a very good class. I don't have a first-round grade on Deshaun Watson. Mitch Trubisky is the only good quarterback in this class, and Patrick Mahomes may be one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. So let's keep that in mind when but again, the gurus are saying, the insiders are saying, the people inside the league and the people outside the league are saying, this is not a good year. This is not a good year for quarterbacks. This is not a good year for that elite level player, that Nick Bosa type player who just changes your franchise. So then how exactly do Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker rebuild the Titans? Rand deserves another year, which, considering there's been zero progress with the football team, I don't agree with. But even if that was the case, even if you were the distinguished gentleman and you said, if he doesn't make the playoffs, he's out, talking about next year. And the distinguished gentleman is the biggest Rand Carthon supporter I've ever seen in my life. In fact, Ian and I are wondering behind the scenes, is that actually Rand's burner on the YouTube chat? But he says if he doesn't make the playoffs next year, he's out. How do you build a playoff caliber team for next year? I heard Willie Donick talking about this on the midday show when they were having their discussion about whether or not the Titans should also go get Sam Darnold, which we'll get into. Because, again, the ESPN's floated some buzz out there that the Titans may sign Sam Darnold in free agency. And Willie was talking about, don't do it because this roster is not a year away. This roster is 2 years away from being competitive. Well, I can tell you all right now, we're not waiting 2 years. Nobody's waiting 2 more years. Now, I think you will be waiting 2 years if you keep the same guys in there that claim the ball bouncing their way is why they're not winning. But again, I think this can be done with somebody new, fresh eyes, etc. But if we learned this past offseason that you can't just spend a bunch of money blindly and become good, and the quarterback class is not great, and even the high-end talent in this draft doesn't exist, how do you build this team into a playoff caliber team next year? Because many have said, draft a young quarterback and we'll show you. Number one, they've already drafted a young quarterback, and he's not very good. So they're going to draft another quarterback, many of whom in the league think stink right now, and that's going to get them out of the hole in time to save their jobs. I have a hard time seeing that becoming a reality. At the same juncture, the model, the Detroit Lions at that point had a quarterback in Jared Goff, had 2 first-round draft choices, which they used on Aiden Hutchinson and Jamison Williams, had 2 more first-round draft choices, one of which was going to be a top 5, top 6 pick that was coming up in the following draft, and they had already drafted Penei Sewell, and they already had drafted Amon-Ra St. Brown. You don't have any of that. There was a light at the end of the tunnel when the Detroit Lions were in the exact same spot in their rebuild or whatever you want to call it that you were. So if these quarterbacks aren't going to save you, if Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Jalen Milroe, if these guys are not a get-out-of-jail-free card, and right now the gurus and the insiders are telling you they are not, what do you do? Do you try to run it back with Levis and hope that year 3 will be any different? Do you try to sign a veteran quarterback? Trade with the Bengals for Jake Browning? What do you do? And this is a serious question. This isn't Jared's just going off and Jared hates. No. You guys tell me, what do you do if these quarterbacks are not the saving grace for the future of the Titans? What is the answer that gets them out of the hole? Put Levis back out there? Sign Jameis Winston? You guys tell me. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number if you want to weigh in. That's how we're starting. 615-737-1025. And you can say, well, I don't, Mel Kiper and Dane Brugler and Albert Breer, and these guys don't know anything. You can say that. People always say that. Whenever they hear information they don't like, they just say that person's biased or that person doesn't know what they're talking about because they don't want to admit what is oftentimes reality. Now, sometimes all these people get it wrong, but for the most part, the consensus usually is educated on some level or another. So you keep saying that. And then there's a cycle that the Titans continuously find themselves in, that a lot of teams around the league find themselves in, the bad teams find themselves in. And if the Titans do, because again, they look at this quarterback as the savior of the franchise, we're going to draft our Jaden Daniels. We're going to draft our CJ Stroud. Because if they look at this as the savior of the franchise, there's a cycle that I'm telling you is about to repeat itself. We'll hit it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
Shador, Cam Ward really have established themselves as 1 and 2 at quarterback. I don't think anybody right now, tell me if I'm wrong, tell me you disagree, Field, no other quarterback, in my opinion, because I think Garrett Nussmeier should go back to LSU after only starting. This is only a year. He's not even finished a year as a starter. He's had some rough moments with interceptions over the last 4 games. He goes back. Milroe goes back. Ewers and Beck, as Greeny pointed out, he's a draft analyst now. Greeny is. When Ewers, not up there. Yeah. Guys this morning in New York were telling me, hey, Carson Beck, I see what everybody sees. So it's really Shador and Ward right now.
Would you take a quarterback?
No, I don't feel strongly enough about one of these guys to take them potentially in the first 3 picks.
There you go, Mel and Field Yates again. Add Field to the list. Albert Breer says, hey, these quarterbacks aren't that good. Mel says these quarterbacks aren't that good. Field says these quarterbacks aren't that good. Dane Brugler says these quarterbacks aren't so good. And every Sunday, as the Titans are getting embarrassed, people are putting out photoshopped pictures of Shador Sanders in an Oilers uniform. You know, every time Shador does something, it's, he's the savior. And I just was thinking about something this morning about this is what I think is going to happen if the Titans, because the only get out of jail free card I feel like they have to play is drafting a quarterback. That's it. I mean, unless Levis in the next 8 games turns into a legitimate starting quarterback, and I think there is no way that you will be able to determine whether or not he is actually a starting quarterback, given the fact that he's got 1 receiver, he's got no right tackle, he's centers out for the year, he's got no starting tight end. I mean, I don't think there's any way that Will Levis could actually look like a starting quarterback, even if he actually was developing and becoming one, given what he's got to deal with. But again, I digress. I feel like the only thing that they can sell to Amy and to you is let us draft our quarterback, even though it has already been debunked. And I actually thought Kaharski, who's turned into kind of a hillbilly for me, but Kaharski, who doesn't know how to charge an electric car, Kaharski said, like, yeah, Rand and his people were operating separate from Vrabel and his people when it came to what they wanted in the draft, but everybody was on board when it came to Will Levis. That was debunked. So if Sanders isn't that guy, if Ward isn't that guy, if Milroe isn't that guy, they're going to have to take him because they're going to have to be able to justify why they can change this team. I mean, we sit here today and we think, oh, well, Amy's got her mind made up one way or another. And I have no idea. But it wouldn't surprise me if Amy was sitting back thinking, okay, so how do we get out of this? You tell me. She's probably leaning one way or another, but okay, tell me what the plan is. Now, that's what Corey Curtis always does to get out of having to put his foot down one way or another if he thinks someone should be fired or someone shouldn't be fired. He's always like, tell me what your plan is, and then we go from there. And the only plan that I think would be a viable thing that could get somebody to say, okay, would be let us draft this young quarterback and let's go from there. Doesn't solve your right tackle problem, doesn't solve your tight end problem, but it does do that. But if you were to do that, think about the cycle that you are continuing. Over the last 3 years, the Titans have drafted 3 quarterbacks in the top 3 rounds of the draft. 2015, they drafted Marcus Mariota, number 2 overall. And Rustin Webster and Ken Wisenhunt both got fired that season. In 2022, they drafted Malik Willis in the 3rd round, 86th overall. And John Robinson got fired in the middle of the season. And last year, they drafted Will Levis in the 2nd round at 33, and Mike Vrabel got fired. You guys think, hey, we're just going to draft Shador Sanders and on we go. Yeah, and I'm sure Rustin Webster and Ken Wisenhunt thought, we're just going to draft Winston or Mariota and on we go. I mean, I don't think when they drafted Will Levis, I don't think Mike Vrabel thought he'd be sitting on the couch in a Cleveland Browns hoodie right now. So if you draft Shador or you draft Cam Ward, chances are, in my opinion, pretty strong that this administration ends up getting fired either during next season or after next season because, again, that's the cycle. It's like Willie said today. He said, I don't think even if they get Sam Darnold, I don't think, and this is what Willie said, not me, but he said, I don't think they're a playoff caliber team. Even if they get Sam Darnold, they are 2 years away. Well, we're not waiting 2 years. Even the distinguished gentleman on the YouTube chat says he's not waiting 2 years. So then you fire these guys. This time next year, we're like, okay, yeah, they got to go. The same way the Chicago Bear fans are like, oh, yeah, they got to go. And now you're stuck hiring a new GM and a new head coach to work with a quarterback that they didn't draft. And we know how this works. We've done this long enough now. Hey, Ian, you're a general manager, a potential general manager candidate. And I am interested in the idea of you coming to run my team. But you didn't draft this quarterback.
Okay.
You know, we got this young quarterback we like. What are you going to tell the owner?
Well, you mean if I'm walking into a Levis situation, or I'm going into the draft saying, hey, I want to draft Shador. I like my guy. No.
I'm talking about you've already drafted Shador. Rand and Callahan get fired. Shador's going into his second year. You used the number 2 pick on him, and you are applying for this job, and there are 3 general manager jobs that are open, and you are the director of player development right now for the Arizona Cardinals.
Okay.
What are you telling Amy Adams-Strunk?
Oh, I love Shador.
Oh, I can make it work. I mean, if Amy Adams-Strunk tells you that Attila the Hun is going to be the head coach, what are you going to tell her?
I mean, are the expectations to be like super awesome next year, regardless, knowing that you don't have, knowing that they don't have a quarterback?
Young quarterback in Shador. Attila the Hun is the coach. Again, it's the same. It's I can work with him. And then every single time we've seen this, coach comes in, I can work with the quarterback. This guy, I'm telling you, Brian Callahan spent the entire offseason doing that about Will Levis. And where are we today? Brian Callahan didn't draft Will Levis.
Well, what if they do get rid of Carthon and Brinker at the end of the year and Callahan? Say they just completely wipe it clean.
Yep.
And you bring in Stillman. What do you think he's going to want to do? And how quickly is he going to expect to win without a quarterback?
So I think, again, you bring in somebody new. I think they can look at this. And again, every guy knows that you probably really have about 2 years. They can look at this and say,
because winning next year is going to be iffy regardless of who you have in the front office, right? At this point,
right. They can come in and they can tell Amy, they can say, look, we don't have enough ammunition to build this team up this year. So we're going to need to trade back in the first round. We're going to need to pick up more picks. We're going to need, because we got to get a tight end. We got to get a right tackle. We got to get and then you convey that message to the fans. I don't remember how John Robinson did it, but I was listening to some old Ask the GMs, from 2016, that first year with Robinson and Malarkey when they inherited the number 1 overall draft pick. And one of the first callers, this was, I think, week 4 or something. And one of the first callers called in and said, GM, what do you think we should do in the first round this year since we're going to have 2 high first round picks? Now, it ended up being 1 high first round pick at number 5. And then the other one was, I believe, at 19. Because you won more games than you thought.
Adoree? Was that the 18?
Was Adoree 18 or 19?
I think he was 18. But close enough, whatever.
So, but we thought at the time it was going to be 5 and 9 or 5 and 7, because we didn't think the Titans were going to be very good. But that was what our expectation level was. When the Titans got good that year and were competing with the defending champion Broncos, and they went on the road to Kansas City and they beat the Chiefs and everything else, it's like, wow. It's like, wow, this thing's ahead of schedule.
So you don't think Carthon and Brinker can go to Amy at the end of the season and tell her that?
No, I do not. You think Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker could go to Amy Adams-Strunk or could go to these fans and say, guys, we're going to be terrible next year too. Just trust the process.
What else are they supposed to say?
They're the ones that got Mike Vrabel fired, and Mike Vrabel is popular.
They got Vrabel fired?
Every time you lose, Mike Vrabel's name gets brought up again. Every time.
I thought Amy fired Vrabel.
Well, it was a choice. And again, I'm just saying, there's no way those guys can go to Amy and say that. I mean, even the distinguished gentleman says that's not acceptable. You think Amy's going to, and was she selling PSLs? No. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones on this. 615-737-1025. Plus, I goaded Joe Rexroad into something that I know he didn't want to do. We'll hit that in your phones next. It's Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game.
right now, I will answer that question.
Yep.
If I'm in charge, and I'll put it to you. If I'm in charge right now and you must choose. You're firing the front office or you're not. I'm not firing the front office. Call me just crazy. How about you? Ooh, you might fire them.
I might.
Okay, well, yes or no? Right now at this moment, you have to say yes or no.
Yeah.
I say no. Okay, there you go. Well, we've put it out there. Now, every day when you wake up, it's like, okay, wake up, brush your teeth, wash your hair, put your clothes. Who's getting fired or who isn't getting fired? Every day you must declare it.
We'll do it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay. So I said yesterday, and I've actually said this for a while, that if you listen to Robbie and Rexro, they talk around whether or not Rand Carthon should be fired, but they never just say it. And finally, Joe started texting me and Ian the other day, like these long paragraphs. Like we have time to read Joe's long paragraphs while we're doing the show.
Yeah, sometimes it depends.
And so he starts sending these long paragraphs.
Cursing at you.
Cursing. And I said, Joe, do you think Rand Carthon should be fired or not? I'll hang up and listen. And I goaded him in today to putting his stake in the ground and saying, okay, do you think, do you not? Robbie says yes. So he joins me and Chase McCabe as the people on this station that have put the flag down to say, okay, enough is enough. Joe says no. But you know what Joe didn't say in that cut right there? Why he wouldn't fire Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker. So I do wonder, Jared versus Joe, 5 o'clock today. I do wonder if we're going to, if Joe's going to articulate it. And it's got to be better than, well, Amy should know that they're good at their jobs because she hired them, which is Joe's go-to. Because what makes you think Amy knows that? Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, 615-737-1025. I'm going to get to Randy's hot take because a lot of people have said similar things like this. Said, I heard on one of the shows, on the national radio shows, that Jerry Jones is going to hire Deion Sanders to coach the Cowboys and will work a way to get Shedeur to be a Dallas Cowboy. Now, let me start by saying this. I don't buy any of that. I don't think Jerry Jones is going to hire Deion Sanders. I don't think Jerry Jones is going to hire a coach who is a bigger star than he is. Because I think that's why Mike McCarthy's there. Because Mike McCarthy is a boring old nobody who could be, one of the shows on CBS. Mike and Molly, Bob Hart's Abishola. It's probably not funny enough to be the King of Queens, but that's the kind of guy Jerry wants. Jerry does not want Sean McVay coaching the Cowboys because Sean McVay's a big star. I think maybe Belichick could convince Jerry, no, you'll still be Mr. Cowboy if you hire me, but not Deion. I talked to an athletic director who hired a head coach the same year that Deion got hired at Colorado. We were talking about all the different names and possibilities, and Deion's name came up. And I said, if you hire Deion Sanders to be your coach, it is going to be the University of Deion Sanders. And would you say that there's any break in that at Colorado? It's not Colorado. It's the University of Deion. And this whole Shedeur thing, maybe, but that's not really how pro football works. This would be the way to do it, though. This would be the way to do it. If Jerry were to hire Deion, which he won't, if that were to happen, trade me Dak Prescott. And I bet the Titans would do that. So I guess if that's what you want, that's a possibility, but I don't foresee any of that actually being a reality other than just people say, well, what about Jerry hiring Deion? Yeah. Again, Jerry is the star of the Cowboys, and Jerry likes it that way. One texter into the text line said, and I actually find this to be very funny, genuinely hilarious that this morning Paul criticized the media for their infatuation with Rand Carthon, then in the same segment said that Chad Brinker is different and should not be fired. Ian, you have looked at the grid today.
Yes.
We got something for Paul Kaharski and his Chad Brinker support later today.
Yes, we do.
And so we will started noticing a little trend there with old Paulie Paul when it comes to Mr. Brinker, which we will get to here on the program.
Maybe he's a fan of AI.
Maybe the AI injuryprevention.com model that has 2 injured corners that you're paying, I believe it's $13 million for Awuzie and $25 million for Snead. Yeah, that's great. One text says, use the top pick on the offensive or defensive line. Fix it up front on both sides. First, the Titans are more than a quarterback away from being healed. Again, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, well, you know what? This year, it's too early to fire the GM and the coach. It's too early to fire the president. Again, clean house. You know, a lot of people are going to interpret this like I want them to fire Brian Callahan, and I don't want them to fire Brian Callahan, but I do want them to clean house. Or at least I want them to fire the general manager and the president, bring in a new football guy to run football. And if the new football guy doesn't want the coach, and I mean want the coach, not, hey, we want you, can you work with Brian Callahan? Because Ian, if she goes to Rick Spielman, who's doing a podcast on CBS right now, if she goes to Rick Spielman or she goes to Thomas Dimitrov, who's at Sumer Sports, and it doesn't look like he's getting another job, if she goes to him and says, I'd like you to work with Brian Callahan, what do you think they're going to say?
You think they'd straight up say no?
No, I think they're going to say, oh, well, we'd love to work with Brian Callahan.
I think they all say that, right?
The same way John Robinson said, I'd love to work with Mike Mularkey.
But maybe give it a year or two and they might pull the plug on
then
that.
all of a sudden it's like, I don't like
I got my guy.
So I don't believe in that. So again, like I don't want Brian Callahan. Like I'm not rooting for Brian Callahan to get fired. I just, again, he signed up to come to this crap show. You know, I mean, I'm sorry. He signed up for this crap organization, and this is what happens to you. It is what it is. But again, that's what I want. Because I do think, again, on one hand, you're sitting there telling me that, no, if they're bad next year, Jared, then you can clean house. And then on the same time, people say, well, they're more than a quarterback away. They're more than a year away, Willie Donick says. Well, if they're more than a year away, what are we going to give Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker 10 years? This is not President of the United States. You do not get 4 years. Justin says, how great is it the bad luck as a Titans fan that the worst year they have had in a decade, the next year's draft isn't even worth sucking for? That sounds about right. I would say that, except for the fact that when the Titans had the number 1 pick in 2016, they ended up, with a haul that built their team. They drafted a Hall of Fame running back with that trade in Derrick Henry. The year before was a good quarterback draft with Winston and Mariota when you stunk. This just is reality. No, it's just where they sit. However it may be. By the way, I was texting with Paulie Paul earlier today. And, I was talking about how, because Paul's big thing is like, if you fire all these people, what do you trust Amy to be able to hire the next guy? And it's like, well,
fair point.
Again, well, I agree. But again, my stipulation the whole time, even go back to last year, was get a Dimitrov, get a Spielman, get a Dominic, get a guy who's done it before. And at least, we know Rick Spielman knows ball. He may not be the best general manager. We know he knows ball. We know he can run an operation. And by the way, it was fun at the Super Bowl. We had Thomas Dimitrov on, and he was kind of pushing us to give Rand another chance.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, Ian, who did I say they should hire? And you were like, you said they should hire Thomas. And he was so uncomfortable when we said that to him. In the Super Bowl.
Thomas says give Rand another shot.
We did. And now you're the worst team in the league. So we gave him another shot. Maybe Thomas will ask that we give him another shot after this shot.
Yeah.
That we gave.
Yeah.
But
This is still the same shot. He's in 1
you think
year.
If I was Amy Adams Strunk and Thomas said, give Rand another shot, and I said, okay, you want me to give Rand another shot or give you the job? Which one do you think you would take?
Well, that's not fair.
So, again, my thing is like, get an experienced guy, and Paul's like, they don't do that in the league. They don't hire retread GMs. I'm like, well, maybe you should. Maybe you should. It's like somebody YouTube chat says, these guys don't have jobs for a reason. Dan Quinn got fired for a reason too. Should we just never let Dan Quinn coach again? Because Dan Quinn is doing a pretty good job with the Washington Commanders, is he not? Cliff Kingsbury's going to get a head coaching job. So how can all these head coaches get second opportunities, but GMs can't? And I know the reason why. Because we see these guys on TV. We see Kingsbury during a Jaden Daniels game with the play sheet in front of his face. So it's like, hey, they're doing great. Go hire them. If you were to leave being GM and you were to go be director of player development, Floyd, senior football advisor, you're not on the sideline. You're not, the owners aren't saying, well, I want that offense. But you can't tell me that guys that were general managers didn't learn from their first jobs. You think if John Robinson got another job, he's trading A.J. Brown away? No. That's called growth. If we're letting coaches do it, I don't see why we should not allow GMs to do it. Guess what? Bill Polian went to 4 Super Bowls with the Buffalo Bills, left Buffalo. Ian, you want to know where he went after he left Buffalo?
I can't think of it right now. I thought I knew at one point.
Carolina, when they were an expansion team. And after a couple years in Carolina, he went to the Colts, where they drafted Peyton Manning. So you guys can poo-poo it, but I'm telling you, it's worked before. Again, if you were to go get Harbaugh, he's running that operation there. He is the GM there. You think it was a bad idea to do that? Give me a break. 615-737-1025. Christopher Dwayne Sanders joins us next on the program. It's Stillman & Company. 105 again. Tune in to 93.3 Totally Hits Nashville tonight for MTSU basketball. The Blue Raiders take on Evansville. Pregame at 6, tip-off at 6:30. Coverage also available on the Totally Hits Nashville app and at totallyhitsnashville.com. Chris Sanders joins us on the program, presented by Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. So, Chris, L'Jarius Sneed was in the locker room today. He was asked by Paul Kaharski, what's the story? When do you think you're going to be coming back? Sneed said, just taking it day by day. So we do not know when this mysterious helmet to the quad that has kept him out for over a month is going to bring L'Jarius Sneed back. Chris, I know on the pregame show you and I talked about, is he milking this or not? Do you think that this is a bad sign?
Yeah, and I'm going to be nice when I say this. I mean, I don't know. I just think that this is the question that needs to be answered. That if they're 2-7 right now, what if they were 7-2? Would he be playing if he was nicked up? That will be the question that he would have to answer. So just kind of looking at the situation. I mean, he hasn't played in 5 weeks. I mean, I know that the thigh bruise. Me and Derek talked about it on the pre-show game last week. That when you do get a thigh bruise, that joker does hurt. But and this is just my opinion, and I respect Mr. Sneed, but I don't think it's going to take 5 or 6 weeks for you to come back. I just think if the record was a little different, I think he might probably play in this game as opposed to them being 2-7.
That sounds like a pretty strong indictment.
No, I didn't say it like. I'm just saying on the outside looking in. I'm not saying that that's the case, but on the outside looking in, that kind of it looks like it a little bit. Because you're out 5 weeks and understand that when you have a thigh that hurts. You can't run. You can't burst and do the things you need to do and start and stop as a defensive back. But this is the question that I need answered. That if it was 7-2 and you're a little nicked up, would you play the game? That's the answer that he needs to answer himself.
Chris Sanders is with us on the program. What did you think of the Charger game Sunday?
I mean, it's like it's like. I say this quote all the time. If you put on the same record, you're going to consistently hear the same song. Let's start with number one, special teams. I mean, we've been talking about it all season. They gave up a 56-yarder kickoff return, not for a touchdown, but 56 yards last week. Against the Lions, it was a punt return. And then the same thing again, too many penalties. Watson had 3, a couple other guys had some. And we talk about the offensive line. You gave up 7 sacks. I mean, Watson had 2, Brunson had 1, Radens had 2. So it's kind of like the same song that we consistently hear. Then we talk about Will Levis. Will Levis played a solid game, 18 for 23, but we're just hoping and holding our breath that he doesn't make a mistake or does something crazy. So it's kind of like, the same song we've been saying each and every week.
Chris, how does this team get better, given the fact that they're not going to get any new players between now and the end of the season, or, new players that are impact players? And it seems like, the star corner has decided to pack it in right now. And the quarterback, I actually thought got better last week, but nobody wants to talk about that. They want to talk about he's holding on to the ball too long. And so with all of that, how does this team actually get better, and the kind of better that would make us think that that could translate over to next year?
Right. I'm not saying that, it can get better in a short amount of time, because, it could. I just think that, this is just my personal opinion. There just needs to be some improvement. And what's some of the improvement? The left line of the Tennessee Titans has been okay, but then we look at the right side and, it's kind of a disaster. I want to see improvement in all facets of the game. I want to see improvement with the quarterback. I want to see improvement, with other wide receivers making plays. I want to see on defense. I want to see Simmons, be a more of an impact player. I want to see Arden Key get more sacks. I want to see, the defense not just playing 2 quarters of football. I want to see them finish. So, even though the record might not get better, but I want to see some improvement in all facets of the game.
Chris Sanders is with us on the program. Chris, I know you are a supporter of Ran Carthon and Chad Brinker. Yes. Would be the person that would do this. Sure. Do you think Ran needs to communicate with the fans what the goal for the rest of the season is and what our expectations should be going into the offseason and the hope for next year?
There's a saying that I say, if you don't have a vision, then, people will perish. So the one thing I want to hear from Ran Carthon and from that organization, and just give us a vision of where we're going. I mean, we don't really know where we're going. And I think anybody can say that when you have a team that's losing, they don't have no vision, they don't have no identity, and all those things that are going on. But I want to hear from Rand. I want to hear from the people that are making decisions. What's our vision? What's our game plan? What's the outlook of this year? What are we going to do next year? Just give us, some hope that, next year is going to be great. Because at the end of the day, if you don't have a vision of where you're going, there's nothing you can point to. We, the fans, the people that are talking about football, we just need something to point to. And I think that if he comes out and gives a clear cut of this is where we're going with our quarterback, this is where we're going with the offensive line, this is where we're going with the coaching staff, then I think we'll feel more comfortable that we got something to point to.
Okay, what if they don't come out and say that?
I mean, we're gonna keep having these same questions each and every week. Who's the quarterback? Who's making the decisions? Who are you gonna draft next? I mean, we just don't know. So me and you are trying to answer the question that only Rand in an organization, can answer. And I think, and I really believe that Rand Carthon is gonna come out and talk about the vision of this team and where we're going. Because in my opinion, me meeting him, I believe he's a stand-up guy. I believe he's gonna say some things to give some comfort level that we're going in the right direction.
You think he'll do it sooner, or do you think he'll wait until after the season?
I mean, I think if they lose a couple of more games, because it's going to get worse and people are going to ask more questions. I just think that, just come out and I'm not saying have a big old press conference. Just come out after a game and say, okay, or after, Tuesday, where you do a lot of the interviews, and just come out and say, okay, this is what's going on with our situation. This is where we're going. I understand you want more players, but give us a clear-cut vision of where this team is going. I think that he should do it sooner than later.
Last one for you, Chris Sanders. Do you believe that Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, because some of the draft gurus are coming out and they're saying, guys, these guys are not, the superstar quarterbacks that come out right away that we're used to. Do you think that either of those guys can save the franchise?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, you just don't know, because college is totally different from football. I mean, not from football, but college is totally different from the pros. In college, you're going to see, a lot of different things that you see in the NFL. In the NFL, when you're going against defense, there's so many moving parts. So we really don't know. It'll come and help the franchise in a publicity way. But I'm not looking to help the franchise in a publicity way. I'm helping for the franchise to win ball games. So whoever you bring should Shakur, I mean, if you bring him in or bring a quarterback in, bring him in, not for publicity. Bring him in.
He might be dead.
Who?
Well, you said Shakur? I think he might be
not Tupac, man. Oh,
You mean Shedeur?
Shedeur, man. Okay, let's just say Sanders. But bring a guy in that's going to help your ball club, that's going to win games, that's going to be an impact player, that transforms your whole organization. And the guy that I play with that transformed this organization was Steve McNair. Bringing a guy like Steve McNair to develop and take a team to the Super Bowl. That's the kind of guy you need, whoever it is.
Chris Sanders is presented by Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning. Chris, great stuff. Even
Appreciate
if
you,
Tupac
brother.
may have passed us,
No, I
not
didn't.
going to be quarterback of the Titans, but we appreciate that.
Goodbye, man. Appreciate you, brother. Bye-bye.
Chris Sanders, as always, on our program. Hey, and be sure to join me, Chris, and Derek downtown at John Bon Jovi's JBJ's this Sunday for the award-winning pregame show, 9:30 to 11:30. Titans and Vikings. The award-winning pregame show is presented by Parman Tractor and Equipment, Sundeck Nashville, Sloan's Motorcycle ATV, and award-winning Blue Note Juke Joint and Blue Note Crossroads Bourbon. And coming up next, speaking of the Vikings, there is a Minnesota Viking who many are thinking might be a Tennessee Titan, including some big names at ESPN. We'll get to that coming up next. And by the way, we usually have a Game Center update, but I talked too long with Chris there. So the Game Center update is presented by Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. And let me just say this, Hiller came out to my home yesterday. They do an A+ job. HappyHiller.com. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. You guys know I love Sam Darnold. And Ian, my preseason prediction of the year that Sam Darnold was going to be comeback player of the year has been thwarted only because after DeMar Hamlin didn't win the comeback player of the year award last year, the crybabies at the Associated Press changed the rule. So Sam Darnold is not eligible to win the award because he wasn't hurt last year, which I think is bull crap.
Interesting. Okay. Well, he's starting to slide a little bit. Anyways, Darnold, 3 picks and 12 points against the Jags.
If there was a president of the Sam Darnold fan club, you know it would be me.
You'd be up there, yeah.
I mean, I said, did I not say this offseason? I said, I will die on the Sam Darnold hill.
I don't know if those were I don't remember that exact quote, but you did like Darnold.
I love Darnold. I do. I thought he was good with the Panthers at the end there. And it's like everybody just ignored it because he went 4-2, but nobody watched those games. And I was like, he was pretty good. Like, he and DJ Moore almost single-handedly got the Panthers into the playoffs. And then the Panthers, because they got the answers, the Panthers were like, no, we're going to go Leroy Jenkins and go trade the world for Bryce Young and then bench him. Because, again, they don't know what they're doing. So Sam Darnold's now a hot name because he's a free agent at the end of the year. Minnesota's drafted a quarterback in old J.J. McCarthy. So it's like, well, Minnesota's probably not going to pay Darnold the big money. So what's going to happen with Darnold? And at the ESPN.com article, Jeremy Fowler, one of their insiders, is asked, get out your crystal ball. Where will Sam Darnold be next season, and will he be a starter? Jeremy Fowler says, quote, let's go with the Titans. I've identified at least 6 teams that either need a bridge quarterback or could entertain the notion soon. The Titans are in the latter category. Will Levis has the next 8 games to show he can be the long-term answer at quarterback, and maybe he proves the Titans right. But if his penchant for interceptions reemerges, the Titans will need contingencies in 2025. Darnold is a proven commodity and will give Tennessee a bridge starter option while it continues to develop Levis or selects a quarterback high in the 2025 draft. So in this scenario, he would be the starter with Brian Callahan. Let me just say this. I love Sam Darnold, but I don't think that this is going to make a lot of sense for the Titans to go after Sam Darnold, and I'm going to tell you why. Because Sam Darnold's going to get tagged. This is what's going to happen in Minnesota. Sam Darnold is going to get tagged after the season, or Minnesota will leverage the tag in order to get a Baker Mayfield-like deal out of Darnold, where it's like, hey, we'll give you $30 million a year on a 3-year deal. We may end up trading you in the middle of that deal, but you'll get $90 million as opposed to the tag, which would be probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 55, 52, something like that. He will get tagged. Because as Fowler pointed out, there are 6 teams that are going to need a quarterback. Maybe even more. But the New York Giants are going to need a quarterback. The Pittsburgh Steelers are going to need a quarterback. The Tennessee Titans are going to need a quarterback. The Cleveland Browns, I don't know, are they just going to roll this out again? The Las Vegas Raiders are going to need a quarterback. Again, you can go on and on and on. There are going to be teams that need quarterbacks. Again, he said 6, and I don't even know the 6 off the top of his head, but I think I just mentioned like 4 teams. He's the one guy. Minnesota is not going to let him leave that building for free. Minnesota is going to tag him, and Minnesota is going to offer him to the rest of the league. It's going to be the same as L'Jarius Sneed. They're going to tag him, even if they're ready to move to J.J. McCarthy. They're going to tag him. They're going to tell everybody, well, we're fine with Sam being our starter. And then they will try to get a draft pick in exchange for Sam Darnold. And they're going to want your second-round pick. They're going to know that they're not getting a first from you, but they're going to want your second-round pick. And what will really determine as to whether or not they'll get it is what the other offers out there are. But once you make the trade for Sam Darnold, now you have to give him $55 million a year. Because if you trade the 34th overall pick in the draft in order to get Sam Darnold on the franchise tag for 1 year and $52 million. I mean, your fans are going to go crazy if you don't sign him to an extension, and he's got you over a barrel because you just used a second-round draft choice to get him, and you're obviously not going to draft a quarterback in the first round, so he's the franchise guy. And that's buying a stock when it's high. I think you want to buy these things when they're low. It's not exactly like the stock market because anybody can buy Apple right now when it's really high, and Apple's still going to be good. You can't buy Mahomes. You can't buy Allen. But again, if you buy Sam Darnold today, you're buying him at his highest. You're paying him $55 million, and you're going to trade a second-round draft choice for him. And I love Darnold. I thought he got a raw deal in Carolina. I think the Jets are morons. And I do deserve some serious back pay for Jared versus Joe for all of my Sam Darnold takes. But I don't like Sam Darnold enough to think you're going to win the Super Bowl with Sam Darnold as your starting quarterback. There is a gap between what every claim I made this offseason, which was Sam Darnold's better than Tua. That was the claim that I made every day during the offseason. That I said if I were the Dolphins, I would not give Tua $55 million. I would offer Tua 30. And Tua would be totally offended. And I'd say, look, Tua, if you don't sign this, I'm going to go sign Sam Darnold. That's just how it's going to be. And everyone said I was stupid, and I knew I was right. And I was right. Because, again, I think they're roughly the same caliber quarterback. I think Darnold's a little bit better, and he doesn't have the head injuries that Tua has. But there's a big gap between elite, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and better than Tua. And Sam Darnold is somewhere in between those two. So, again, I saw that the Midday Show ran a poll and like 70% of the people said they'd rather have Darnold than Levis. I'd rather have Darnold than Levis too. But the how you have to get Sam Darnold doesn't make a lot of sense for where the Titans are. You know what would make a lot more sense as far as the Titans are concerned if you wanted to trade for Sam Darnold would be if you had taken the Rams trade during the draft instead of drafting a run-stuffing DT who doesn't hit the quarterback. If you had taken the Rams trade and picked up their second rounder next year, now we can have this kind of discussion because you will have 2 second-round draft choices. And then you think to yourself, well, hold on, wait a minute. I can draft Travis Hunter to put it wide receiver. I can draft a tackle to play right tackle. And I can still trade this second-round pick if I want to for Sam Darnold to be my quarterback. Now you got something, right? Because you got Darnold at quarterback. He's fine. Pollard, 2 tackles. Calvin Ridley, Travis Hunter. The free agent market at tight end is atrocious, but you have to figure that out. But now you've got something. But you didn't want to do that. You had to have T'Vondre Sweat. So, again, I think that it is absolutely an upgrade from Sam Darnold, from Will Levis to Sam Darnold. Not even close. But you have to ask yourself, is it worth a second-round draft choice, which is what they're going to want, and there will be a market for Sam Darnold? Is he worth a second-round draft choice and $50 million a year? Where you're committing to him. And I don't think he's that good. I don't think you can win the Super Bowl with him. I think he's Jared Goff. I think he's Ryan Tannehill. And if you wanted Ryan Tannehill again, you could have just re-signed Ryan Tannehill. So, again, I get why it's like, well, the Titans don't have a quarterback, and Darnold doesn't have a contract for next year, so voila! That's not really how that works. Minnesota's not letting him leave for free. They're not going to. They know teams around the league are going to want him to be their quarterback after what he did this year. And they've got the leverage because they've got the tag. So now the question is, are you willing to give up all of that? Willie was just talking today about, well, I wouldn't spend $30 million a year for Sam Darnold. I'm like, 30? Try 50. There are a handful of teams in this league that do not have quarterbacks, period. You don't think that they're going to all drive the price up? That's why Dak Prescott got 60 from Dallas, because they knew if Dak hits free agency, unrestricted free agency, and you can't tag him, Dak is going to be able to name his price. Even with a hamstring injury, Dak would have been able to name his price. So they had to pay him $60 million. Same thing's going to happen to Darnold. So I'm not sure that I see a match between Sam Darnold and the Titans. 615-737-1025. Gentry Estes texted me and said nobody watched those Panther games with a question mark. Gentry's the only other one. Gentry was on my side on Sam Darnold the whole time. Like, if I'm the president, Gentry's the vice president. And Gentry might argue that he should be president, I should be vice president, because he was all in on Darnold too. When I went on Robbie and Joe early in the year and was talking about Darnold before the start of the year, maybe training camp, he texted me and was like, I think you're right about that. So I do have to tip my cap to Gentry because he's in on Darnold too. But you can't give him $50 million a year and trade a second-round pick for him. If you could just sign him in unrestricted free agency, then that would be different. But you're probably going to have to give up the 35th pick in the draft in order to be able to do that. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number if you want to weigh in. Plus, I did make a list yesterday, actually, of the available quarterbacks. If you want to go this route, assuming Darnold gets tagged, we'll get to it next. Somebody Company, 1025 The Game.
the most interesting name that has been brought up to me as the top half of the draft order starts to shape up is Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is under contract just this year with Minnesota. Minnesota used its first-round pick. They traded up to number 10 overall to grab J.J. McCarthy. We know that quarterbacks are often rushed into the NFL sooner than they need to be, but it's also not great business to take a guy 10th overall and sit him for multiple seasons. The Vikings have been kind of planning for a discounted quarterback starting next year after spending a lot of money on Kirk Cousins and then bridging the gap this year with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's going to get paid by somebody. And if you look around the NFL, some of the most obvious teams that Sam Darnold could become appealing to are in the top 10 of picks right now. Maybe Carolina would not go down that road because he has been in Carolina. It did not work out for Sam Darnold in Carolina. How about the Titans, though, in Tennessee? How about the Giants, the other New York team? Somebody's going to play their chip, and somebody might well play their chip on Sam Darnold. And all of a sudden, one of the teams that's going to need a quarterback in the top 10 is no longer going to need a quarterback because Sam Darnold might get a Baker Mayfield-like contract of 3 years and $100 or $105 or $110 million based off of how he has played so far this season.
There you go. That was Field Yates talking about, hey, Sam Darnold, that's the guy. And because of that, when he's like, all these teams, they might be looking for a quarterback, they may be circling Sam. That's why Minnesota's going to tag him. That's exactly why Minnesota's going to tag him. And again, somebody's going to trade for him. And when you trade for him, now you're over a barrel. And if not, I think Minnesota looks at this like, if we tag him and nobody wants to meet our asking price, well, then he'll just play quarterback for us. And that's fine. And if not, then we'll be fine. Either, like they don't have to rush J.J. McCarthy out there. And by the way, apparently J.J. McCarthy, Kevin Stefanski, who used to be the offensive coordinator there, Kevin O'Connell, said today that J.J. had another surgery on his knee, but he should be okay for whatever that's worth. So let's take Darnold out of this, right? Ian, I kind of feel like Darnold is kind of a pipe dream.
He's going to be somewhere.
True.
He's not going to be on the Vikings, right?
Pick for him?
Somebody's going to have to.
Yeah.
I know you're right. The Titans need every top 100 pick they can get. Let's be honest, so overall, I think your theory is, your thought process is probably right, but you never know.
You never know. But so I put together a list of like actually available quarterbacks that you could go get in free agency or trade for or whatever. And here's the list. Jameis Winston, Mac Jones, Gardner Minshew, Derek Carr, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and then the trade category, Kirk Cousins, who, I don't know what Atlanta's long-term plan is at quarterback, but maybe Cousins. I don't think he'd be available, but maybe Cousins. Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder, and Jake Browning. LD from McMinnville texted in and said, what about Jake Browning as a potential target for the Titans in the offseason? The problem is Jake Browning, who is a backup quarterback in Cincinnati, Jake Browning signed a 2-year contract. So Cincinnati, you have to trade with Cincinnati in order to get Jake Browning. Again, you're trying to build a football team. You think you're going to win the Super Bowl with Jake Browning? So now you just traded away a 4th-round pick in order to get Jake Browning. And you see what I'm saying? And so, I've also got Daniel Jones and Drew Lock. And the case is with all these things when it comes to doing what Minnesota did, doing what you did with Tannehill. The case is kind of always the same, which is that you got to buy these guys when everyone's thinking, oh, no. And there's one guy on this list that I'm like, there might be something to that. And it's Mac Jones. He's the only, and again, I'm not saying like Mac Jones is the man. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying he's the one guy who, like, there might be something there. Everybody else, Daniel Jones, Drew Lock. I mean, he's had some moments, just not enough. Fields, no. Wilson, I mean, Arthur Smith's working his magic with Russell. I can't imagine he leaves Pittsburgh.
He looks
Derek
solid.
Carr, no. Winston, no. Minshew, no. So that's your option. I mean, like, it's Levis, draft a guy, trade a second rounder for Darnold, or this group. That's all you can do. You know, I mean, like, that is not good. That is not good as far as getting out of the hole that is this mess that the Titans find themselves in.
No Tannehill wild card situation stood out this time.
I don't think Tannehill's interested.
No, I mean, not Tannehill, but what they did to acquire Tannehill. You know,
Well, again, that's what I'm saying is it's got to be like Mac Jones.
yeah, but I guess Tannehill I guess Jones played a handful of years in New England before he left. Mac Jones is, I guess, kind of similar to a Tannehill situation.
So I looked at every other quarterback. Arizona's not moving off of Kyler Murray. Like, that would be one that's like, you know, well, Kyler's been there for a while and they haven't won anything and he's making some money. So could that be at the end of the year, Arizona and Kyler say, you know what, we're not interested in being no, they're not moving off of Kyler because there's nobody who they're going to go get. You know, it's like the Kirk Cousins thing when he was in Washington and there were these rumors that he was going to get traded to San Francisco. And Floyd said, well, then who's Washington's quarterback going to be? Like, I don't know. He's like, well, then what are they going to? Kyler, same way in Arizona. Kyler's the quarterback there. So they're not moving off of him. And then every other quarterback in the league, it's like, well, I mean, you know, Cincinnati's not trading Burrow and Baltimore's not trading Lamar. And even the big high-priced guys, like I do not see Jacksonville trading Trevor Lawrence. You know, so I don't see Indy trading Anthony Richardson, who, by the way, is back starting, baby. That's right. I don't see any of that. So it's got to be, again, like the Tannehill theory is, it's got to be Sam Howell in a trade. Woo. I mean, this is not a market that you're looking forward to. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on the program. Paul Kaharski today was talking about the hierarchy of the Titans. And there is one thing that I will tell you will happen if you bring this operation back for one more season. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
there's some temptation to fire, but I don't think they should fire anybody. I think you got to have some stability for a while. But the self-preservation element concerns me, and I think it will be in full on mode for Rand in particular, and that the moves that they will make, there's going to be a huge temptation to make moves that are going to serve the 2025 Titans and not necessarily the long-term future of the Titans.
Well, some would argue that would
That's
already
a
happen.
question
Yeah.
I would love to ask Rand Carthon, but we're not going to hear from him until it's mandated.
Yeah.
Polly Paul Kaharski saying this morning, one thing I worry about, first of all, I love Paul's I think everybody should stay because I think you need stability. Stability in losing? I didn't hear anybody begging for stability when Ken Wisenhunt and Rustin Webster were stinking up the joint. In fact, the entire organization was unstable. They had changed the controlling owner and the president of the team. So they had changed that. Then they fired the coach. They fired the GM. And I didn't hear one person say, we need stability. Ken Wisenhunt got 23 games. But I digress. But again, if you're the Titans and you're looking at bringing Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker back, what was the thing that Paul just said right there? Which is, I do think there would be some self-preservation and there would be moves made for the 2025 Titans as opposed to the big picture Titans. And here's an example as we're discussing Sam Darnold and Jeremy Fowler predicting that Sam Darnold ends up as the Titans quarterback next year. Let's say that Minnesota tags Darnold and that they shop him around, which I think they're going to do. And they say, we want your second round pick. And your second round pick is 34 overall. Cleveland, they're out because they can't pay the $50 million for Sam Darnold. So Cleveland's out. They could if they wanted to, but they're not going to because they got to see this Deshaun thing through. Good luck to them. New Orleans, they don't have as good of a pick that you have. But New Orleans, they want Sammy D too. And New Orleans is knocking on the door. And some of these other teams, the Jets, although the Jets, he's already been there. The Giants, they're interested, but they don't have a second, I don't think, because I think they traded it for Brian Burns. So, in order to do this, you have to give up your second. I would say right now, as somebody who likes Sam Darnold, I like Sam Darnold, I would say, do not do that. Because I don't think you win a Super Bowl, Sam Darnold. And I think when you're picking 34, you need to go get it. You need to get a star with that pick. Not a run-stuffing DT or a guard. But you need to go get a really good player with that 34th pick. Or you need to trade it down and pick up a third. Similar to what happened, when you traded that pick with Arizona for the Will Levis selection, you traded the second pick of the second round, and they ended up taking your third off your hands. But would you do that if you're on the hot seat? Knowing that, we're going to pick a guy and it might be a developmental process and he might not be a star right away and he might, or would you say, no, let me go get the best veteran quarterback out there I can get? It reminds me of what Floyd used to talk about, the two options that a general manager has. You can either do your job or you can protect your job. The only saving grace for the Titans this offseason is outside of that kind of Sam Darnold trade. I'm not really sure that there are a lot of protect your job type moves. If you want, though, okay, what's a protect your job type situation? It's go with a veteran quarterback who knows your system that can come in right away. And then it allows you to draft Travis Hunter in the first round or right tackle or whatever. But you're not going to build a Super Bowl contender around Jake Browning. You'll be able to win 8 games, 9 games with Jake Browning at quarterback and say, see, we made progress from 4 wins to 9 wins. But you're not going to build a Super Bowl contender doing that. And so, again, if you're Amy, That's the kind of thing that you have to assess, which is, okay, like if I bring you guys back, are you guys going to be okay with the big picture stuff, knowing that, hey, if you take Shedeur Sanders and he's not Jaden Daniels right away? And I saw a crazy stat that apparently, and again, this came from Twitter, so it could be fake. I don't know. But a crazy stat that apparently Jaden Daniels' stats are incredibly similar to RG3's. So again, young quarterbacks, we've talked about it, takes time. You know, some guys weren't very good at the beginning and then they got better, etc. Josh Allen. Can you live through that? Because if you take Josh Allen and you get a Josh Allen first year, you're fired. Can you do that? And I don't know if they can do that. And that's what Paul said. You know, I'd love to ask, but then again, that points to the fact that they don't answer a lot of questions. Jared from Spring Hill says, Hiller is coming to my house today to fix some sink issues. Way to go, Jared. He said, I really wish the Titans were good. I hate having to shift the basketball now that they're down and out. I don't like having to worry about basketball until after December. I mean, look, I went to the Louisville UT game on Saturday in Louisville. And, you know, I root for my team. But, like, I tried to watch that Champions Classic last night. It was so boring. Oh, my God. It was so boring. I didn't even make it to I got to halftime of the Duke Kentucky game. Click. So boring.
Couldn't even make it to the second game. Was boring too, huh?
Well, that was the second game. I think the first game was
game.
Michigan State,
Michigan
whatever.
State,
I didn't watch that.
Kansas, yeah.
Did you watch that?
Oh, it was on here for a little bit. Yeah, it was also a little bit boring.
Boring. I just, like, I'm sorry, if it's college basketball and it's not my team, like, call me in February. It's amazing to me. The last 2 years, I have not cared a lick about college basketball. Get home from the Super Bowl, and it's like, all right, college basketball. And I can find myself watching games. But it's like I cannot get into it before the Super Bowl's over for whatever reason. Eli says, what about Justin Fields to the Titans? And another texter says, what about Andy Dalton? Well, Andy Dalton is like 39 years old, so I don't see that being a long-term answer for you. And I don't even think Andy Dalton's that good, although he does know your system. And then when it comes to Justin Fields, like, I'm not a Fields guy. I'm not going to say Fields stinks because I haven't watched him enough to be able to tell you, like, yeah, he sucks. Like, I'd watched enough Darnold to tell you that there was something there. In the Carolina Sam Darnold run, there was something there. I mean, I didn't watch the first couple of Steeler games, but I think if Arthur Smith was that quick to be like, no, let's get the corpse of Paul Russell Wilson in there and all of his corny bull crap, if that was the case, then it wouldn't encourage me on Fields. But again, I'm also not really a Fields guy. I think you could talk me into Fields kinda as a free agent who signs for like $2 million. But even then,
As a
I'm
starter,
not sure. Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like,
I don't know
not.
if you can go. I mean, Pittsburgh even made the switch.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Is like, again, I'm not a Fields guy, but, you know, Fields did win some ball games there. But like Arthur Smith was like, no, get Paul Russ in there. You know, and that's kind of disheartening. Let me say this, by the way. I meant to mention this. I watched the early window games. You know, the Vandy basketball game came on at 11:30 on Sunday. So normally when there's a later game, we do the award-winning pregame show from 1 to 3. But because Vandy basketball was on, we were like, why not? Let's just keep the routine. It's the only 3 o'clock game this year. So we did the award-winning pregame show on Sunday from 9:30 to 11:30, even though the Titans didn't play until 3. So I was actually able to watch the early window games. Ian, let me tell you who I actually liked on Sunday. Bo Nix was not bad.
Okay. Yeah,
The
I mean,
Broncos.
they put up a fight. They've won
in my
some
opinion,
games.
Bo Nix won that game. They just missed the kick.
They got it blocked. Yeah.
Bo Nix, I thought he's got poise. And again, what's the thing with him? He's played in college for 35 years. So he's got all those reps under his belt. But I liked it. I think Sean Payton might be going in the right direction with old Bo Nix. Just saying. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number here on the program. 615-737-1025. Coming up next, speaking of Kaharski, we have got to talk about a sacred cow that big, bad, tough Paul Kaharski will not cross. And he won't admit it either. We'll get to it next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 again.
By the way, someone's ripping you for you trying to separate Brinker. You trying to protect your little guy Brinker? Is that what you're doing?
Brinker
over
is
here?
not my guy.
That's your
Here's
boy?
what I'll say about
That's
Brinker.
your boy. Go
Brinker's
ahead. Defend your boy. Go ahead.
Brinker's unknown. And Brinker, to me, is a normal guy. Like, he can answer a question. He can talk.
I don't see him doing any pressers.
Well, he's not doing pressers either.
Okay.
I'd like him to be more available, but I've requested him. I've been granted him, and I've sat down with him, and he's answered questions competently.
So he's your
without
best friend,
putting
and
his
you're
foot
defending
in
him.
his mouth.
That makes sense.
He's a normal guy, kind of like Callahan. Ran, when asked questions, says, oh, well, let's not talk about Tajay Spears' knee on the day he's drafted. It's the most important day of his life. Brinker doesn't strike me as that kind of guy. So Brinker gets a little bit more of a chance from me.
Okay, so that was Paulie Paul this morning on the morning show when, again, Paul says that you do not put Chad Brinker and Ran Carthon together. Now, I've said, look, I'm firing both of them. I do not care. Well, Chad's only responsible for this and Rand's only responsible for that. And so I get rid of both of them. Get rid of the AI injurycancer.com model that's supposed to predict injuries. Boy, really did well with the two corners you got. How are they playing right now? Oh, yeah, they're hurt. So, again, I have no use for either of them. And the other thing, too, is this. If you go get an experienced football guy to come in here to run this team, you think that Rick Spielman's going to be interested in answering to Chad Brinker or having Chad Brinker around? Hell no. Adam Peters, who's the general manager in Washington, Adam Peters turned down the interview with the Titans because he didn't want to have to deal with this collaboration with Vrabel, and he wanted to go somewhere where he could run the show. He goes to Washington. Ben Johnson wants the equal opportunity. He says, no. This is my team. So, again, to me, if you get rid of one of them, you get rid of both of them. I don't see the difference. But Paul's like, Brinker is different. Brinker, he answers a question. He's a normal guy like Callahan. Well, let's go back and listen to some of the things that Chad Brinker has said. And Ian, I know I'm flipping the order here, but let's go listen to some of the things that Chad Brinker has said on the record here recently. And you tell me if this is normal guy Callahan tells it like it is, or if this is more like Ran Carthon's bull crap ball didn't bounce our way.
Yeah, I look at my position as a position of ultimate service. I'm here to service our head coach, our general manager, and every single department head. We're about creating leaders within our organization, empowering people to do their jobs. And my job is to help lift them up, give them the tools that they need to succeed in their roles. And I really look at it that way. That's what true leadership is service to others.
I do know we have the right GM. Ran Carthon's going to do some great things. He and Brian Callahan just kind of getting this team together. There's a lot of excitement around it. Hope is a powerful thing. We're hopeful that the fan base sees that and is excited about what we're doing now. I'm extremely grateful and appreciative. Miss Amy is she is sweet. She's kind. She's fair and tough. And she loves her Tennessee Titans. There's no doubt about it. She loves this organization. She loves these fans, and she wants to get this thing right. And I'm just grateful that she put me in this position to try to help get the organization moving in the right direction and push us into the future. I know Ran and I, we've had a lot of conversations just around philosophically how to build a football team. And we're just so aligned, he and I. And, Ran talks about he has this acronym FIT, fast, instinctive, and tough football players. And I love that. I was like, man, I love that. That's kind of an identity of the team that you want to build. And because this league, you got to be big and fast. Size and speed matters.
Did that sound like something Callahan would say? Miss Amy is kind and Miss Amy is sweet, but she's tough and she's my favorite in that is my job is to service the head coach. That's my favorite of all of them. But again, it's the same bull crap. And then there's the whole ball, the cancer AI model and all of that. And then we have to talk about why Paulie Paul really actually is the way he is for Chad Brinker. And my theory is it's because Chad Brinker talks to Paul. If you've noticed, Paul's broken some stories on Twitter, like Will Levis's sprained AC joint and the fact that he would be out for the Buffalo game. And Paul had this long sit down with Chad Brinker about what the entire analytics department does. And listen to some of the times where it feels like old Paul Kaharski just happens to want to go out of his way to protect his buddy Chad Brinker.
Who's mostly to blame here that's not a player? I mean, it's not a one-guy thing. The final say on personnel belongs to Rand Carthon. So if you think it's a personnel problem, then Rand Carthon. But, I mean, I don't know how you blame Chad Brinker for what's going on. So I think got to blame the coaching for game plans and for guys not getting better right now. But it's on the guys first and foremost. A friend of mine calling me a shill for Brinker. Blame Rand. He runs personnel. Blame the coaches, but you can't blame Chad Brinker. Well, I think, you can blame Brinker, but we don't know exactly what Brinker does. Brinker oversees the football operation. So Brinker's in charge of that field. That field doesn't have anything to do with what the Titans are doing, winning or losing. Brinker's in charge of analytics. Analytics doesn't have anything to do right now with whether the Titans are winning or losing. Brinker is in charge of all the football stuff except the personnel. So it's kind of an insulated job that prevents you from blame. Isn't it? Am I wrong there?
Yes.
The things that are wrong with this football team right now are how it's playing. And how it's playing is about the players and the coaches. And Brinker is a step removed from the players and the coaches, though he's the boss, I think. I don't know if they direct report. We've never gotten an answer to this. Does Rand report to Brinker or does Rand report to Aim? And does Callahan report to Brinker or Rand, or does he report to Aim? I think he reports to Rand. But then who does Rand report to? It's a little bit scrambled there.
There's a 2% chance that Rand will talk.
We got a lot of disagreements on percentages.
I'll request Rand today, and they'll say, no, Callahan will speak on behalf of this. We have a better chance of Brinker talking.
Right?
Because
Interesting.
because Brinker understands that it's important for somebody for there to be some expression of something. I don't think he'll talk either. But the idea that Rand's going to get in front of a microphone after this, nobody's going around saying, hey, trust me, Chad Brinker's great. I know you don't see it, but he's building relationships like you can't imagine. He can't conduct a press conference, but this guy behind the scenes is a wizard. Nobody has come up to me and said that.
And that's your standard for.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I'm judging him as a normal guy.
I mean, I just look at the front
Rand
office.
doesn't. Carthon has a PR firm working for him behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Brinker does not.
So, I mean, it's like Paul goes out of his way to say, well, Rand won't talk to me, but Chad Brinker might because he understands. Or you should blame Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan, but you can't blame Chad Brinker. Or nobody's pumping Brinker's tires because Brinker knows what he's doing. Brinker's like Callahan. Meanwhile, I'm listening to Brinker talk about how his job is to service the head coach. And I'm like, you're telling me that he's not bullcrap and he's more like Brian Callahan? Come on now. So again, I think the thing that Joe said originally there that, hey, you say that we have to separate Brinker and Carthon because you want to protect your buddy, your source, Paulie Paul. I think there's something to that. Because every opportunity, when Paul said somebody said that I'm a shill for Brinker, yeah, that was me that texted. And there he's like, no, we don't know who reports to who. We don't know who. The Titans told me that Rand reports to Chad. That's what the Titans told me. Could they have been lying? Sure, they lie all the time. But come on now. Come on now. So, again, I love this. The narrative Paul's trying to push. He's got one person in the building. Because remember, he was on Vrabel's side. We did that whole Tierre Tart thing where somebody texted me that Vrabel had texted them that Tierre Tart had lost the respect of his teammates, and that's the most important thing that you can have. And so Vrabel texted that person, and then I texted Joe, and I said, did Vrabel text you? wondering if Vrabel sent out a mass text to the media. And it wasn't me that Vrabel texted, trust me. But I was wondering if Vrabel had sent out like a mass text. And Joe was like, if Vrabel texted me, I wouldn't tell you. And I said, well, he's going out there saying things like T.R. Tart had lost all the respect of his teammates. And then an hour later, Paulie Paul tweeted out that T.R. Tart had lost the respect of his teammates. And it wasn't hard to connect the dots there. And so then Vrabel gets fired, and, Paul and Rand Carthon almost got into it in Minnesota, so that's not going to be his end. So it's Brinker. It's Brinker. And now, according to Kaharski, Brinker holds a job that Paul Kaharski says is insulated from criticism. Wow. Albeit. Ian, how do I get one of those jobs? Insulated from criticism?
I'm not sure.
I need a job like that. Pay me millions of dollars. Give me the title president. And,
Consultant. That kind of sounds like a consultant job.
Give me that job. I'll take that job. Or maybe just, Paulie Paul got caught carrying water again. 615-737-1025. The draft gurus are starting to say that the QB class, the one that, Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward's going to save this team, apparently it kind of stinks. And I think that there's a little proof in the pudding on this. We'll get to that next. I'm going to come to 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, the game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. So Albert Breer, insider for Amazon and Sports Illustrated, and, you know, he does the Thursday Night Football. He's kind of their Adam Schefter. Came out and said this is a bad year to have a top pick, that the quarterbacks aren't good, and the elite players at the top aren't your typical top-of-the-draft elite players. And Mel Kiper's come out, and he's got Shedeur Sanders 11th on his big board, Cam Board 12th. Dane Brugler has Cam Board 16th. Jalen Milroe 22nd. Shedeur Sanders 23rd. And that's not good if you're a Titan fan and you think the savior of the franchise is either Shedeur Sanders or Cam Board. And a lot of people will say, they don't know anything. A lot of people say, remember those guys, they said so-and-so was good and they weren't. Those draft gurus, they don't know anything. And there's some truth. Well, they said Mahomes wasn't that good, and Mahomes is pretty good. But I'm actually starting to think that this QB class does stink. And I'll tell you why. Because teams usually look at their board 2 years ahead. Like they have to have a good idea of what's going to be in the next draft too. Well, this is going to be a big draft for guards. Well, don't draft a guard this year because next year is going to be a big guard draft. Well, you know, there's not going to be any good quarterbacks in next year's class. So you got to, well, then if there's going to be one this year, you might as well take it. And that's exactly what the Atlanta Falcons did. The Atlanta Falcons had the 7th pick. And the Atlanta Falcons, even though they had signed Kirk Cousins in free agency, drafted Michael Penix. Excuse me, the 8th pick. You had the 7th pick. Drafted Michael Penix. And a lot of people were like, guffaw. And Arthur Blank was like, I want a succession plan at quarterback. I want a quarterback of the future. Well, that doesn't make sense if you're paying a guy $40 million to be your quarterback for the next couple of years. It doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense unless your people are saying, hey, next year's class, woof. Year after that, I don't know. Although Arch, you know, is a name that everybody kind of circles. But at the same time, I mean, Kirk Cousins was in the same draft class that Ryan Tannehill was in. He's not a spring chicken. So Atlanta was like, you know what? Let's go ahead and get a guy now. Because if you don't think there's going to be a good quarterback for a couple of years, then it makes sense to jump out ahead and say, let's get in now. The Giants tried to trade with New England to get to number 3 and draft Drake May, and they offered next year's first-round pick, and New England turned it down, and we saw it all on Hard Knocks. Here was Giants general manager Joe Schoen and owner John Mara, I almost said Wellington Mara, owner John Mara on Hard Knocks on HBO the day of the draft, and them talking about trying to trade 2, 3, and what they'd be willing to give up in order to get Drake May.
What's going on? I don't know. You tell me. Just waiting, deciding when I want to call Elliot. My plan now is I was going to call him and just say, hey, I'm getting ready to go talk to John Mara. And I want to know, you know, are you serious about this or just, you know, stringing people along until you get something that's historic, which we're not going to go there. But this is consuming a lot of my time and my thoughts. And if we don't have a realistic chance, then I would just like to know. But before I go to John and try to feel him out, if I could get some sense of if it's 2025 one and what are you looking for? Like, what else are you looking for on top of that?
Believe me, if we are about to pull this deal off, I'm going to have palpitations. I got to stand by my conviction. That is, if you guys have a conviction on a quarterback, that's what we do.
Yeah.
Like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Very similar situation.
I just think we're in striking distance, so we should take it. You know, it goes back to the you should draft one every year. Well, if you got a chance to get a top 3 in a draft, way better hit rate than our walk away scenario. If it's got to be a blockbuster trade, Ricky Williams style, we're rolling with Daniel. Let's continue to add around it.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. So then on Hard Knocks, it shows Joe Schoen pick up the phone, call Elliot Wolf, and say, hey, would you be interested? And Elliot Wolf's like, nah, we're gonna probably pick the quarterback, you know, unless something crazy were to happen. And Shane's like, well, like crazier than next year's one, what would it be like a couple of ones and a two and a two and it was like, yeah. Why? Because New England knew, like, hey, we got a shot at a quarterback right here, and we're going to take it unless you give us something that is just, that we can't even turn it down. And the Giants were offering this year's one. That's going to be like 3 overall too. And even then, New England, a rebuilding team, was like, no, we're going to take quarterback. We can get the quarterback. We got it. Drake May would go number 1 in this draft. And there wouldn't even be talk about it if Drake May had gone back. That's the thing. So, again, the league, Atlanta's telling you, we don't think the quarterback class next year is very good. The Giants are telling you, when they were about to trade the Malik Neighbors pick, plus the 3rd overall choice in next year's draft to go get a rookie quarterback, they're telling you, we don't think this class is very good. So I'm starting to think that there's a real chance that these dudes, Cam Ward, Shedeur, aren't very good. Now, I haven't studied them, so I can't sit there and tell you what I think, and I'm not going to pretend to. But again, I see a lot of Titan fans that are holding on to hope that Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders is going to be the savior of this franchise next year, a la Jaden Daniels, a la C.J. Stroud. And the draft gurus are telling us that's not the case. And the guys in the league are telling us with their actions, yeah, we're not really sold on this either. 615-737-1025. There's something I saw, speaking of these quarterbacks, on social media that maybe I'm just a hater, but it's really something I don't want on my football team. We'll get to that next. Tune into 102.5, 106.3 The Game tonight for Vandy basketball. The Commodores take on Cal at Memorial Gym. Tip-off is at 7. Pre-game is at 6:30. Coverage also available on the 102.5 The Game app and at thegamenashville.com.
Shador, Cam Ward really have established themselves as 1 and 2 at quarterback. I don't think anybody right now, tell me if I'm wrong, tell me you disagree, Field. No other quarterback, in my opinion, because I think Garrett Nussmeier should go back to LSU after only starting. This is only, it's only a year. He's not even finished a year as a starter. He's had some rough moments with interceptions over the last 4 games. He goes back. Milroe goes back. Ewers and Beck, as Greeny pointed out, he's a draft analyst now. Greeny is. When Ewers, not up there.
Yeah.
Guys this morning in New York were telling me, hey, Carson Beck, I see what everybody sees. So it's really Shador and Ward right now.
Would you take a quarterback?
No, I don't feel strongly enough about one of these guys to take them potentially in the first 3 picks.
That was Mel Kiper Jr., Field Yates on the First Draft podcast. So I got something I got to say, Ian, that people are going to get upset about, but that's okay. Because sometimes we got to keep it real.
Okay.
Did you see the video on Twitter of Shador Sanders and Deion Sanders Jr. with the Texas Tech ball boy from the game on Saturday?
I did not know.
Okay, so there's a video on Twitter. Apparently, Shiloh Sanders, Deion's lesser of the 2 sons, football-wise, there was a fumble by the Texas Tech quarterback, and Shiloh picked it up and ran into the end zone and scored a touchdown. And again, I don't know the exact rules about whose football belongs to who in college football. Like, I have a football from a Louisville, Florida State game that I got that's got like the cardinal bird on it. And so each team has their own balls. And I don't know if it's like, they tell the ball boy, like, whatever you do, Johnny Ray, do not let a Texas Tech ball get out of sight. We only got 50 balls this year and we can't afford to lose one. I don't know. But apparently Shiloh scores a touchdown and he takes the ball and he starts celebrating, and Shador comes over to celebrate. And Deion Jr. is like the director of the creative services. He's got a video camera attached to his hand at all times, walking around the facility and everything else. And so Shiloh's celebrating or whatever, and Shador's celebrating with him. And the Texas Tech ball boy comes up and slaps the ball out of Shiloh's hand, trying to get the ball back. Shador gets up in the face of the Texas Tech ball boy like, hey, what are you doing? And then Deion Jr. comes storming over. And Ian, he had the psycho eyes at this Texas Tech ball.
Did he have his camera with him?
I don't know. But like, it would not have surprised me if Shador didn't kind of put his hand in front of Deion Jr. if like Deion Jr. threw a punch at this ball boy.
He was
like,
seeing
gonna
red,
kill
huh?
this.
Seeing red.
He was going to kill this guy. Like I'm telling you, like, I mean, looking at it, and I think Deion Jr. is like kind of shorter than Shador, so he's got these eyes, and I'm like, yo, it's kind of freaking me out. And I know that Deion Jr. is Shador's brother, and you'd be drafting Shador and not Deion Jr. And I know you'd be drafting Shador and not Deion Sr. But I don't want any part of the Sanders circus.
Well, Deion Jr. would be staying at Colorado, right?
Again, I don't want any part of the Sanders circus. I don't know who's coming. I don't know who's staying. I don't know who's I don't know. Deion has outperformed expectations at Colorado. Granted, the Big 12 is kind of like the ACC West, where, people are like, Colorado is so much better this year. Yeah, because they're not playing Michael Penix or Oregon or Caleb Williams. Got it. They're playing Texas Tech and Oklahoma State and Scarbini State that's made its way into the Big 12. But again, Deion's doing better than anybody would have thought, including me. And I give him credit. Deion's winning more games. They're relevant. He said it was going to be this way, and he is walking the walk. But I don't want any part of the Sanders circus. Because that let's just take Sunday's game. Let's take Will Levis out and put Shador in. Shador gets sacked 7 times with no right tackle, a fat-footed left guard who can't pass block, and, 1 receiver. And I've said, I thought Levis played okay on Sunday. And, yeah, he could get rid of the ball a little bit quicker, but it's not like Levis is why you lost Sunday. But a lot of fans are like, Levis sucks. Oh, he's awful. He can't get the ball out. He's this, he's that. Well, now let's put Shador in there. You think Deion Sanders is going to let the narrative, when his son had a quarterback rating of 127.4 or 124.7, I can't remember one or the other, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, sacked 7 times behind a line that stinks. You think Coach Prime is just going to let the Nashville narrative that Shedeur sucks, you think he's just going to let that happen? Or do you think Coach Prime is going to, in a press conference, on social media, go after Brian Callahan's coaching, go after the right tackle, go after the left guard, go after the tight end, go after everybody else? And my gut tells me that's exactly what Deion's going to do. The way people around here talk about Will Levis, the way they think about Will Levis, Deion Sanders will absolutely not allow when it comes to his pride and joy, Shedeur. Will not happen. And I heard them talking today. Joe's like, well, you need to be a better fan base, or you need to, be a more adult team if you let that. Deion Sanders is one of like the 5 most popular people in sports. If Deion Sanders came out today and said, I don't like the fireball logo the Titans have, they'd be having talks on PTI about, is Coach Prime right? Should the Titans change the fireball logo so they can get Shedeur? I don't think you win in the NFL that way. So I don't want the Sanders circus. Whether it's Deion Jr. looking like he's going to kill that ball boy on the sidelines, whether it's Shedeur, and I didn't like the way Shedeur, there was an interaction with him and Cam Newton on the sideline I didn't like. And then there's Deion. And I don't think you win that way in the NFL. I don't think you win the old Dallas Cowboy way with Michael Irvin and his cocaine, and I don't think you win that way in the pros. And other people will build their team the other way. The Chiefs, Tyreek Hill, Frank Clark, all these, Rashee Rice, they don't care. But that's not what I believe in. So I'd have a hard time when it comes to bringing the Deion circus to town, which you do when you draft Shedeur. Somebody texted in and said, look what Sanders has been tweeting about the Raiders. I mean, look, I think it's a match made in heaven. Shedeur, Deion, the Raiders. Antonio Pierce is not a strong enough coach to be able to handle that. I mean, it would be a complete and total gong show, but that's the Raiders. And that's what the Raiders have been for the last 25 years. That's not what I want. I'm just saying. I could be wrong about this, and I could be talked out of it. But where I sit right now, I don't want anything to do with the Deion Sanders circus that would come with drafting Shedeur. That's just me. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company, right here on 1025 The Game. Let's talk about Nashville's best deal. This best deal of the week is Fat Bottom Brewing Company. Enjoy their long-awaited release of their barrel-aged Noel Christmas Ale just in time for the holidays. Get half off a $100 gift card now at theGameNashville.com/deals while supplies last. Tune into 94.9 The Fan this Saturday at 3:15 for our college football game of the week, Missouri and South Carolina, presented by Twin Peaks. Otherwise, very impressed by South Carolina on Saturday against Vandy. Take your tailgate to Twin Peaks, home of 29-degree drafts and wall-to-wall sports. Jason Fitz joins us, Yahoo Sports, Fox Sports Radio on the program. Fitz, the big debate around town is about the future of the front office. Now, I lump Chad Brinker and Rand Carthon together, and I believe that the Titans have got to go bring in somebody experienced to run the operation, move on after 2 years. If that means move on on Brian Callahan after 1 year, so be it. And I'm not alone. 39% of the people in a poll we ran say everybody should be fired at the end of this season. 29% say nobody. 25% say GM, not coach. 7% say coach, not GM. That's 64% on Rand Carthon, 46% on Brian Callahan. Fitz, what's the answer for the Titans?
A complete rebuild. I think you're right. Everybody, sweep everybody out. Bring in, and we've talked about this before, but I think a successful organization runs with the common vision that one person lays down with everybody. So in my opinion, the only way you have a successful organization is if the owner hires the one person that is then going to hire every person to execute their vision. So I think it goes team president, team operations, whatever that person is, who then helps select the GM. And then that GM and that group selects the head coach. They all select the coordinators together. Everybody's on a common vision one way or the other. Sometimes it's done differently. San Francisco is a great example of hiring Kyle Shanahan and then saying, hey, Shanahan, we're going to let you pick everybody else and you're going to cook. But at this point, the Titans are so bad. And like, this isn't a punchline. And this doesn't bring me joy to sit here and say, the Titans are so bad that I can't find a redeeming quality in the building that I can hang my hat on. And for everyone that says it's not your fault, show me the one person that has done something so brilliant that you look at it and say, I cannot believe we would let this guy walk out the room. And we haven't seen that from the Titans. You tell me the one transaction or the one coaching move or the one moment that you've seen where you just step back and you say, holy cow, we've got genius in the building. And if the answer is you haven't seen it, then blow it up. And look, I know it's fast. Everybody retracts everything and we all blow these things up faster than ever. But I do think now, in modern football, faster than ever if you've got your guys. So, at this point, it's abundantly clear to me that the Titans don't have a clear direction. They don't have a clear answer. They don't have a clear path. They don't have a clear talent. They don't have a building block, a foundational piece towards greatness. I don't see it on the field, which means I got to wonder where it's coming from on the sidelines of the front office. And if the answer is nowhere, blow the whole thing up.
Fitz, you were here on the radio when John Robinson and Mike Mularkey kind of blew the whole thing up, started over, and turn this franchise around. Didn't it feel like just what was your memory of that in terms of your expectation and seeing them make progress and how that's different from what we're seeing right now?
So this comes back to that and I remember, look, at the time, remember when Fisher was finally fired after mediocrity. I think it was Clay Travis that made national headlines at the time, no shock. Because of the way he handled the press conference and asking tough questions. And it was all about what's your vision and why are you not explaining it to the fans? Because the fans spend so much money on it. And I think there was this moment we forget where the organization just felt like it was teetering in ineptitude and we didn't know where everything was going to go. And to me, with that era, what really became clear and evident in that moment, now I don't know what happened, but in that moment, it really, to me, we all looked at it and said, John Robinson knows what he's doing. And because he knew what he was doing and what that method was going to be and how to get to where they wanted to go, it felt like there was this common vision. I genuinely believe, and look, there's one thing I learned at ESPN, and I still stick with all the former players I talked to. Of players, we don't talk enough about the egos of everybody that selects those players. And to me, sometimes you just end up with this situation where ego stacks on ego. I think you have to have an alpha in the room that is the alpha. And that was clear in that beginning step. John Robinson was the alpha and everything else went around it. The minute it became John Robinson and Mike Vrabel are both alphas, now you have a power struggle. Now you have a constant peeing match. And the minute you have that, you don't have a win anymore. I don't think you can have two alphas in the room.
Jason Fitz with us on the program. There are some Titan fans that say that Rand Carthon deserves at least another year. Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan deserve another year because it hasn't been long enough, Ian, that it hasn't been long enough in order to get an idea. And I think a lot of Titan fans, not Ian, but a lot of Titan fans are holding on to hope that Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward can be this organization's Jaden Daniels or CJ Stroud. Do you believe that?
Man, this hurts my heart because my fandom for the Raiders. Everybody knows my fandom for the Raiders. I genuinely believe the Raiders have a very real shot at being the first overall pick in the draft this year. I think they're going to get that. I don't think they're going to win another game this year. And when they don't win another game, I think the Raiders are going to have the first pick. And I'm going to watch the Raiders have the first pick and select a quarterback in a year where the last thing you want to do with the first pick in the draft is select a quarterback. I have now I'm close to a dozen different smart people that I've surveyed that know quarterbacks and know the college game. And I've asked all of them the same question. Whichever quarterback you have first on the list, Shedeur or Cam Ward, one person has Garrett Nussmeier, whichever quarterback you have number one on the list, I don't care which one it is. Just tell me this. Where would they rank amongst last year's quarterback class? And I haven't told anybody the answer. And I've gotten the same. The answer has either been sixth or fifth from every single one of them. There is not a single person I've talked to that believes that there is a Jaden Daniels in this draft class. And look, I think Cam Ward's really made some huge steps. Tight window throws are really good. He saves Miami consistently. I think there's a lot to like about Cam Ward. But I don't think, and Shedeur Sanders has these Caleb Williams moments with all scheduled plays. We all talk about this, right? But none of them at this point are Jaden. None of them are Drake May. None of them are Caleb Williams. None of them, in the estimation of everybody I'm talking to, are even J.J. McCarthy. The question is, are any of them capable of being Bo Nix? And I think people need to hear that because there's a much greater chance of finding this year in the draft when we're all drafting. There's a much better chance that my favorite team that I've rooted for my entire life is going to draft another Jamarcus Russell than there is that my favorite team is going to draft a CJ Stroud. There is a much better chance that we're going to find Anthony Richardson in this draft than we're going to find Jaden Daniels. And it pains me to say this because my favorite team is going to pick, I believe, ahead of the Titans, and my favorite team is going to take their top quarterback off the board, and I think my favorite team is going to suck for 5 years because of it. So I say that to Titans fans because I feel it in my bones that both of these organizations would be making a mistake to bank on a franchise-saving quarterback in this year's draft.
The Raiders, in your hypothetical situation, they're going to take Shedeur, right?
Yeah, I think so. They'll take Shedeur. Yeah, 100%. Well, here's the one thing I'll say about this, and you'll appreciate this because I know you're fandom for it. I believe, and I am now informed in my belief, I'll say it that way, that Mark Davis, I know Mark Davis loves Shedeur Sanders, but I know this for a fact. Mark Davis is going to let Tom Brady do whatever he wants. So Tom Brady is going to be the one that says who they pick. Like, it's not going to be the GM. It's not going to be Mark Davis. It's not going to be the head coach. It's not going to be any of those. Tom Brady is going to be able to look at the entire room and say, this is the quarterback of the future. And the entire room is going to say yes to that, no matter who he says that is. So the only hope that I have, because I think Shedeur has flashes of brilliance. I don't think we have any idea if Shedeur can really be a great quarterback in the NFL. But I got to trust Tom Brady. I mean, Tom knows a hell of a lot more about quarterbacks than I ever will. If the Raiders pick Shedeur, it'll be because Tom Brady told him to. And if he does that, what can I say? Other than you're desperate for at some point, you're so desperate for a quarterback, it doesn't matter if it's the right choice. You just got to swing. You're up against it. You got to swing. And that's where the Raiders are. So the only way, by the way, that the Titans will get a quarterback better than Brady would select in this draft is if the Titans lose more games than the Raiders. And I don't think the Raiders are going to win again this year.
Yeah. I mean, I guess to your point, like, I mean, I don't think I would be persuaded if I owned a football team by Tom Brady. And I love Tom Brady and all that stuff, but he's never evaluated quarterbacks before. Playing quarterback and evaluating quarterback is what leads to John Elway drafting Paxton Lynch and Drew Lock. Like,
Yep.
Okay, whatever. I'd rather have Nick Saban make the pick for me than have Tom Brady make the pick for me.
This is the fatal flaw, and I know this is not a Raiders station. This is a Titans conversation, but this is the fatal flaw to the Raiders. Mark Davis
Titans are stupid too, Fitz.
I mean, Mark Davis has been honest in front of microphones that he is not a great football mind. And so what he has been searching for year in and year out since he got control of the team is a great football mind that he can trust. And, I had someone I trust tell me when this Brady stuff started, Brady didn't want to be a GM because GMs can get fired. He didn't want to be a coach because that's a pain in the butt. But being a owner of a team, you can't fire a part owner of a team. So we can have all the control that a GM or coach has without any of the fire ability, without any of that he doesn't have to deal with any of the drama. He can be an equity partner in something and still have that control. And Mark Davis used to have another former Raider in his ear all the time that he fired last year, Marcel Reese. That's Mark Davis is looking for a person that he can look to and say, what should we do? And that person is going to say what they do, and that's exactly what he's going to do. So, like Mark Davis at this point said politely, is a puppet for the Raiders, and Tom Brady is going to be the actual person making every single decision moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I watched Derek Jeter. I watched Derek Jeter run the Marlins. I watched Michael Jordan try to build a basketball. Like, okay.
You are correct. You are, Jared. I never blow smoke. You know that. You are 1,000% correct. This will be the fatal flaw of the Raiders. I'm just saying that at this point, that's the Raiders going to pick a quarterback with the first pick in the draft, I believe, and the first pick in the draft quarterback will be selected by Tom Brady. So whoever the Titans take, if they're picking second or third or fourth or fifth, is going to be the other quarterback, whichever their preference is, it'll be the other quarterback. I think it's only one of those two. But I'll say loudly, I think the smartest thing you can do in this year's draft, no matter how bad your team is, the smartest thing you can do is just go out there and take the best player available. And even if it means you're going to stink for another year, wait for quarterback. Like maybe take a flyer in the third round on somebody you hope for. But man, there just isn't. I don't believe there's a franchise savior in this year's draft.
Jason Fitz, Yahoo Sports, Fox Sports Radio, joining us on the program. Fitz, great stuff as always. We'll talk soon.
Appreciate you, brother. Have a great week.
Yep, Jason Fitz. So, I mean, I'm sorry for the boo-hoo. Cam Ward will save the Titans. Fitz is not buying that. Also, I mean, look, Tom Brady, I love Tom Brady. Tom Brady's not going to convince me how to run my franchise. Nick Saban, he might be able to convince me. Not Brady. 615-737-1025. Speaking of stupid franchises, there are plenty of those in your own division, including something that one of your counterparts did today. We'll get to that coming up next. Stillman & Company on 102.5 The Game. Want to tell you about Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I had Hiller at my home yesterday. I had them do some work. We're going to figure out, put some outlets in a certain room in a different place. Hiller came out. They gave me the true transparency pricing, and bam, we scheduled a follow-up appointment. They will be here next week to put those in. It's going to be very easy. That's how it is with Hiller. They are the best. And that's why I love telling you about them. Hiller is giving away cash for the holidays, and they are celebrating from now until the end of the year with special deals. Hiller wants to make sure every child experiences the joy of Christmas this year, so they're donating $50 in Toys for Tots with every tankless water heater purchase, and giving away a $250 Visa gift card with each unit. Get a $500 Visa gift card when you buy select new HVAC systems, or get a $500 Visa gift card with the purchase of any new whole home generator. More details are online at happyhiller.com, where, as always, happy you'll be or the service is free. And these deals are only available until the end of the year, so schedule today. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today.
Anthony Richardson starting for the Colts again.
Hey now.
Free AR5. Free AR5. He's back on the field. He learned his lesson.
Yep.
Okay, he learned his lesson now. The culture in that Colts facility has certainly been called into question.
Big time.
By the own players, fans, alumni, obviously, which I'm going to consider myself, and people around the city. You know, when some of your best players are coming out saying, like, yeah, like, I don't know what the hell's going on in here. Kenny Moore, like, we don't work hard. Quentin Nelson comes, team preparation, good. Individual preparation, not great. It's like,
what?
Are you guys professionals or not? And how long has this been happening? AR got an opportunity to sit back, watch, hopefully learn from a lot of people talking like, hey, quarterbacks operate differently, have to operate differently. And when he's in there, he's electrifying. He can run for a hundo. He can throw for 5 hundo.
Mm-hmm.
He might miss a few because he's still a rookie quarterback, even though he's in his second year. He wasn't in the building much last year, which, once again, don't love. I don't think that would have happened in any building that's worth a shit. If your rookie quarterback has surgery, I think they're still going to be back in there learning stuff. So once again, not AR's fault that he seemingly doesn't have anybody to like kind of teach him the ways, but hopefully Joe Flacco has done that and the team still in it.
Anthony Richardson is back, baby! All right. So, I got to tell you, even Fitz in the last segment was talking about, you know, it could be Anthony Richardson. Is this some horrible draft pick? So, worst thing ever, that's the Colts are a gong show. It's a dumpster fire. The coaches lost the team. You got players saying that they don't focus in the meetings, that they don't work hard. Steichen's got to go. I said weeks ago, the answer in Jacksonville and the answer in Indianapolis is to fire the coach. Give the quarterback another shot with a new coach in each case. And here's Anthony Richardson, who's getting back in the lineup. He's going to be the starter for the rest of the season, according to Shane Steichen. And all of a sudden, here's McAfee, Colts fan, everybody else say, all right, yeah, AR's back. And you even heard in that cut right there, McAfee talking about the organization and saying, you know, hey, last year when he was rehabbing, he was outside of the building. Don't know what stupid organization does that. But the answer is the Colts. Now, just because you're stupid doesn't mean that Indy isn't stupid. Jacksonville's stupid too. And Houston, the jury is still out on. But again, just because you're stupid doesn't mean Indy isn't. And I said the night they drafted Anthony Richardson, I said, the only saving grace as a Titan fan is that they're going to ruin this kid. That is the only saving grace. And now he's back in the lineup. And I'm going to tell you why he's back in the lineup. He's back in the lineup because there was a viral video clip that went around from inside the NFL. Kevin O'Connell, the head coach of the Vikings, was mic'd up. And after the game on Sunday Night Football between the Colts and the Vikings, Kevin O'Connell sought out Anthony Richardson, and he dapped him up, and he gave him a hug, and he said, hey, just remember this. You're a bad dude, and you're going to be in this league for a long time. Just trust me on that. And Shane believes it too. And they hugged it out, and Richardson, yes, sir, and they walked off. And people said that in the draft process, Kevin O'Connell, and I think we can all agree Kevin O'Connell knows what he's doing at quarterback. Kevin O'Connell loved Anthony Richardson because people who know ball knew that Anthony Richardson had these unbelievable, undeniable traits and abilities. And he went to the single worst place he could go. Everybody knew that he needed development. He needed time. What did Indy do? You know, we're just going to put him out there and see what happens. They got him hurt. This was, by the way, what McAfee said about Richardson not being in the building last year when he was hurt. Ian, that's the first I'm hearing of this. That's a red flag.
Yeah, you'd like to, especially with a shoulder situation like that, you'd want to get in there.
I mean, I want my trainers and doctors rehabbing him, and I want him, you know, around the team.
For sure.
And so apparently that was a whole wasted year, even from a standing on the sideline standpoint. And now he's got to play. But Indy, just because they're so stupid, they can't figure it out. So now they're putting him back in, probably because the owner saw on his phone the video of Kevin O'Connell, who does know what he's doing, saying, hey, you're a bad dude. Remember that. Well, I mean, if Kevin O'Connell thinks it, why are we playing Joe Flacco? Because you're stupid. And let me just say this. I don't think Anthony Richardson is going to make it because I think the Colts are too stupid. But you will never convince me that Anthony Richardson didn't have that juice, that Anthony Richardson couldn't have been that guy. If Anthony Richardson had gone to an intelligent organization with a smart coach, what could have been? But the Colts are stupid, just like you are. 615-737-1025. Jared versus Joe is up next. And today, Joe Rexrode said he finally put his foot down. And he said that if he ran the Titans, he would bring Ran Carthon back for another year. So I'm sure that will come up on Jared versus Joe, which is next. I'm going to Company 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. It's 5 o'clock on a Wednesday, which means our friend Caroline Fenton is here. Hello, Caroline.
Hello, how we doing?
Outstanding. He's so good to talk to you. By the way, I just want everybody out there to know, as we welcome in Joe Rexrode for Jared versus Joe. Joe, I am banned, apparently, from listening to your segments with Paul Kaharski on Wednesday, according to Paul Kaharski.
Oh, okay. I did not know. Ian just said something to me about busting his chops. So you're banned from listening. Okay, I'm sure you'll abide by that.
I'm banned from the Robbie and Rexrode to listen for the Robbie and Rexrode program while Paul's on, because we played a montage of Paul sucking up to Chad Brinker, while then also saying that he doesn't know what Chad Brinker does. You know, I think as you called it out earlier today on the program, Paul's little buddy Brinker, I think that may have something to do with it. So apparently I'm banned for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, I mean, as much as you can't tear yourself away from obsessively hate listening, I don't think that's going to go well.
Well, it's not even obsessively hate listening. I enjoy listening to the Robbie and Rexrode program. So with that,
there you go.
It's time for Jared versus Joe.
Jared Stillman versus Joe Rexrode. Now on Stillman and Company.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game.
Jared versus Joe is presented by Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville. Caroline.
I do wonder how Paul plans on enforcing said ban. Is it you better stop listening or else?
Well, I told him, I said, if I'm banned from listening to his segments and he's banned from listening to Bruce Springsteen.
I know, that's really bringing the hammer down.
I mean, hey, you know, if we get to just pick who's banned from what, he's banned from that.
We make the rules around here now.
Mm-hmm.
A citizen's arrest, if you will. Okay, Joe, you go first. Maybe less of a question and more of an explanation for a take of yours. Ian?
Right now, I will answer that question. Good. If I'm in charge, and I'll put it to you. If I'm in charge right now, and you must choose. You're firing the front office or you're not. I'm not firing the front office. Call me just crazy. How about you? Ooh, you might fire him.
I might.
Okay, well, yes or no? Right now at this moment, you have to say yes or no.
Yeah.
I say no. Okay, there you go. Well, we've put it out there. Now, every day when you wake up, it's like, okay, wake up, brush your teeth, wash your airplane clothes. Who's getting fired or who isn't getting fired? Every day you must declare it.
We'll do it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, by the way, way to go, Joe. You actually put your foot down, said it one way or the other. Thank you.
Yeah. I didn't get to everybody, though. I didn't get it. No, I know. If you don't declare fire or no fire, you're just talking around something, according to Jared. It's really an incredible rule. There's a lot of
so
other
many
people
rules.
we could talk about firing or not firing. I know. So many rules.
So,
all right, so
why
you're
would you
asking
not
me to
fire Ran Carthon?
You're saying, say it again?
Why would you not fire this front office, and why would you not fire Ran Carthon?
Why would I not fire today? Because
yes.
I don't think that everything has been bad. I don't think they're idiots who don't know football. I think the drafting has been pretty good and the free agency period was bad. And if I make an investment, here's the big answer to this question, Caroline, is, this is where we're so limited, and it's kind of hilarious that we talk about this stuff sometimes if you really step back from it. I don't have the information on the hiring of these people, right? I mean, I know the thumbnail sketch, right? I mean, I know the resume, which is fine. The resume is typical for getting a job like this. I don't have I don't have the interview information. I don't have the information on all the people who have been brought in to work or have been kept or have been, there's so much information we don't have. We have the product. The product is bad. We can all agree on that. Also, it's his second year as GM. He did take over a bad situation, a bad roster. He is in a different situation. I mean, I agree with Jared in general terms on it's his second year as GM. We can't sit here and say it's his first year as GM. That's overdoing it in terms of making excuses for him. But it is a different situation. And this is something that Jared definitely talked about a lot, and D-Mace has kind of called you to the mat on this. I do think that he very much deferred to Vrabel in his first year. Now, again, you can criticize him for that, but I think in some ways his job has changed. Will we agree on that, Jared? Can you pipe in real quick? You agree on that or not? You certainly talked that up a lot. Whether you
technically he got promoted. I mean,
right,
technically he got a promotion this past offseason.
But that's what I'm asking. Right. I know. I understand that. Yeah, I know. Amy did the weird and then Brinker. Yeah, I get that. What I'm saying, though, is that the mechanics of his job have changed, who he's working with. And I do think that there was very much, no question, Mike Vrabel is in charge of this place, right?
No.
For his first year. No? You don't buy that?
Well, your story was the one with Diana Rossini that said that Vrabel went to Amy and said that he wanted to be in charge because he thinks he deserves it. Amy said no, and she got pissed off about that. But so if the owner is mad that you want to be in charge, and the owner is mad that you even suggested that you should be in charge, then that tells me that the other guy she hired is in charge.
Right. But see, yes, that's not what I'm talking about. I understand that Vrabel asked for full control, but I'm saying that Mike Vrabel is an overpowering personality, and I think that Ran Carthon deferred a lot to him. You disagree with that now? Because you certainly used to say that. You don't think so anymore?
Here's what I was told, because I know what you're referencing with D-Mace. What I was told by somebody in the building was Ran likes to play GM more than he likes to be GM, which I interpreted not as Mike Vrabel runs the team. I interpreted that as the real work of the GM Ran doesn't actually do. The either whether, I don't know if it's grinding the tape or if it's holding the staff accountable, or, we talk about he never talks to the media. And whenever he does talk to the media, it's always something stupid. I think that's probably an example of, hey, he loves going around and being GM, but he doesn't actually do the job of being GM.
Okay,
when you're the GM and you love to talk when things are good, but you won't talk when they're bad, that's not being GM. That's what I reported at that point in time.
Right. So to keep on topic and not go off topic too much, to answer your question, Caroline, right now today, no, I would not fire Ran Carthon, Chad Brinker. I would not fire the front office. I don't like where things are going. I reserve the right to do so at the end of the season. I mean, first of all, you're asking me about would you fire Ran Carthon that we're talking about today? I mean, an in-season GM firing, as we've all discussed, is one of the most moronic things I've ever heard of. And Amy Adams-Strunk did that 2 years ago. An in-season GM firing is completely idiotic.
Well, are we talking about an in-season GM firing, or are we talking about where things stand right now? Would you fire them at the end of the year, Caroline?
Yes.
You're saying, would I fire him at the end of the year? At this point, I'll stick with no. I reserve the right. Look, I want to see. There's a lot of personnel things that I'm waiting to look on. I'm looking.
Are you reserving the right for if things get worse?
Absolutely. You don't think the information the rest of this season matters? Does Chidobe Awuzie ever play? Does L'Jarius Sneed ever play again? Does Calvin Ridley keep playing well, or does he disappear again? You think there's not information that's relevant to come? You think that's it? We got all the
information that is relevant to come, but it's holding out to see if things get any worse to fire them. I mean, I don't know how things can get much worse.
Okay, that's fine. Then you know what? We could end this right now and Jared wins. I'm sorry that I don't want to fire everybody every 5 seconds. Tomorrow I'm going to wake up and we'll just see, is Andrew Burnett fired or not? Is Barry Trotz fired or not? I mean, let's go. We got a lot of people we need to decide their fate. No, at this point, my plan would be to give this front office another off season, another draft, another free agency period, figure out quarterback. And, does that mean that you're going to be even worse next year and you have confirmation? It may be. Is it possible? Is it possible that these guys aren't morons who, to quote Jared, don't know football and might be able to get themselves out of this? I think that is possible, but I'm gonna wait for more information.
I mean, is it possible they could put me at quarterback and win the Super Bowl? I mean, I guess it's possible.
Well, I mean, you're just being dumb. I mean, okay, if you want to be dumb, be
Joe,
dumb.
I think what we have to look at is it likely? Is it likely if you bring back Rand Carthon and Chad Brinker, and this idea that Kaharski had about separating them is the stupidest bullcrap I have ever heard, because you think like a real GM's going to want to come in here and, well, you report to Chad Brinker, who's in charge of the analytic department and the cap and the blah, blah, blah. No, you're either firing both of them and starting over, or you're bringing them both back in this fakakta arrangement that Amy drummed up, which is as stupid as it sounded at the time that she did it. But again, my thing is this. Is it likely that they turn this thing around, Joe?
Right now, it's hard to say it's likely. It's also hard to say, again, I know that right now Caroline's question is putting us in the place of Amy, but like if she were to do this, I understand like people are going to take an NFL GM job, but my God, how would people view working for this owner? Oh, because yes, they are losing, but they did have limitations. They did have issues. They've made some of their own mistakes for sure. But to look at this ownership, if she did this, it would be, again, one of the biggest joke franchises around. I understand that she's already established that with bad decisions. But then you're going to compound that and, again, declare to all that, like, you, I don't know, didn't actually interview anyone, don't know what's going on with these people. Because if you're, as I've said, we don't have this information. We don't have a ton of information. And if Amy does do this, then that to me says she's acting on information that there's incompetence behind the scenes, not just the product that we all see, or Rand not talking, or Rand, saying silly things when he does talk to a reporter. There's got to be a lot more than that. I don't have that information.
So again, I'll use the word likely, because you're right. I don't know everything for a fact. I don't know. I think it's likely there is incompetence going on behind the scenes. And when you talk about this idea of, you'll be the laughing stock of the league if you fire Rand Carthon after 2 years, after all the other things you've already done, I don't think people pay attention to the Titans like that. And not only that, I also think that the laughing stock moment where people in the NFL looked at you and thought, what is the matter with you, was when you fired Mike Vrabel. I don't even think that it will be noticed in the league when you fire Rand Carthon, other than, oh, hey, a GM job's open. Great. Let's go apply for it. Again, I just, that to me, that's
do your own fans matter? I know that you're, your own
fans want to fire Rand Carthon.
Show the courage to fire them. Oh, Jared, don't speak for other fans. Some do.
Here you go. We ran a poll this week.
Oh,
Who
and how
should
many
the
people?
Titans
How many
fire?
people voted, Jared? How many people voted?
693.
Okay, well there you go.
We had like a
693.
5,000 person poll last week or 2 weeks ago, Ian. I can't remember what it was, where 49% of the people thought I should be GM over them.
Exactly. So what are we talking about? We're talking about idiots on social media.
No, I'm talking about
really.
your fans.
Carry on.
Your fans think that these guys are dopes, because your fans were promised, and Robbie correctly brings this up a lot.
Fans have every reason to be upset. They have every reason to be upset. Absolutely.
They talked all this trash about how good they were going to be, and they're horrendous. They're unwatchable. And so, again, I don't think Titan fans would look at – I think Titan fans think Amy doesn't have a clue right now. You think firing Rand Carthon's going to change that for the negative?
No, I agree that they already think that. But I think that you compound it and you, again, just hammer it home. By the way, after a year after the thing that you play all the time, right? It's her, I have high expectations.
I have high expectations.
Again,
we have Rand. We have a good young quarterback. We have cap space. Yay!
As bad as it was then when she fired Vrabel, first of all, a whole bunch of people talked themselves into that was a good idea, and you wanted them to fire Vrabel. So
I wanted them to clean house.
Like you didn't think, okay, but you were on board with firing
I didn't
Vrabel.
want it halfway.
I didn't want it in the preseason. And then in the preseason, it's, oh, yeah, these guys just like to talk, and they're just cool. And Vrabel was mean. He's a big meanie. Now everybody's all, oh, my God, I miss you, Vrabel.
No.
Yeah.
I compared Vrabel to Zachary Tyler, the president during the Teapot Dome scandal, where after he died, he was a beloved president, and then he died, and then everything, all these scandals came out and everything, and like now he's remembered as one of the worst presidents in U.S. history. And I was like, that's the way they're talking about it. Now, I have no idea if Brian Callahan's going to be Sean McVay or not, but the way that they're all talking about it is that it was Big Bad Vrabel's fault. I never said it was all Big Bad Vrabel's fault, because saying that would be the equivalent of me saying that it wasn't Rand Carthon's fault or that Rand Carthon knows what he's doing. And I can promise you, I never said that.
I never said that you said that, but you wanted him fired. But yes, I understand.
I did want him fired.
Again,
I wanted the clean house.
But
and
Amy,
they didn't do it.
Listen,
they doubled down.
It was bad. It was bad then in terms of all the things. You gave those extensions. You did all things with Vrabel and Robinson. It can get worse. It can get to the point where it's like, oh my God, there's zero hope that this franchise will ever turn around because the owner is just completely clueless. And that is, if you don't think that a good chunk of there will be some Titans fans rejoicing if this happens, but I promise you, a good chunk of discerning Titans fans will think exactly that. I thought it was bad with Amy, but oh my God, it's actually even worse than I thought. Because is there no process here for hiring people, for vetting people, plan, stability, any of those things? No, just, oh my God, we had a couple crappy teams. Nope, you're out again. We're starting over again. So to go back to the original question from Caroline, with the limited information I have, which is mostly just the product being bad and, the media crap, which we sometimes maybe overblow a little bit. At this point, my plan would not be to fire him.
I feel like you're more interested in saving face than you are in actually getting the football team right.
I'm interested in carrying out a plan that I had and talking with my employees and talking through things. If they've been lying to me, and again, this is information I don't have. If I knew right now, they told me, oh yeah, no, we're going to be really good this year, this, that, and about Levis, this and that, all this stuff. And now this is what we have. Okay, well, that changes things a little bit, right? But I don't know that. I mean, yes, they talk up stuff like, oh, we got the coaches we wanted. And again, Rand can't resist saying stuff like that. But that's still different from
check
that,
every
right?
box.
Yeah, that's fine. But okay, if I was told as the owner of this team, oh, we're competing with AFC South this year, we got what we need, that we're feeling great about right tackle, feeling great about, these, we're going to be healthier, all this stuff. And I had those assurances. And then I don't have answers when I call and say, what happened here? What happened there? And I'm not satisfied with the excuses. Okay, well, then that's different. But again, you're asking me what I would do based on the information that I have, which is way less than what she has.
Do you think it's likely at all that they told Amy, like, hey, we're going to suck this year? Thank you for the $230 million. We're going to suck.
Suck? No. Could they have hedged their bets? Yeah, I would hope they did, but I have no idea.
Rand doesn't strike me as a hedge his bets kind of guy. But again, that's just from his public persona. I don't know his super secret private Amy Adams Strunk persona. More Jared versus Joe to continue next. Stillman and Company, presented by Pella Windows and Doors. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game.
Jared Stillman versus Joe Rexroad. Now on Stillman and Company.
On ESPN
1025 The Game.
Jared versus Joe is presented by Pella Windows and Doors in Nashville.
Okay, Jared, you go first. There was an ESPN article with Dan Graziano and Jeremy Fowler, and one of the questions was, where does Sam Darnold end up next season? Jeremy Fowler said, let's go with the Titans. And for a second, frankly, Jared, I thought you may have hijacked Jeremy Fowler's laptop, because that's your boyfriend. That's your boo thing. It's your favorite quarterback in the league, Sam Darnold. So would that be a good idea for the Titans to pursue Sam Darnold?
I mean, I don't think it's realistic. Let me just say that. And by the way, I remember being in Jared versus Joe this spring defending Sam Darnold, and Joe kept saying, that I was crazy, and Sam Darnold.
The guy who's thrown 5 picks the last 2 weeks. Okay, go on, carry on.
That's okay. He's getting W's. But
I would take Sam Darnold over Will Levis.
A great W.
To be fair.
Hell of a W.
Here's why I think it's unrealistic. Because I believe Minnesota's going to tag Sam Darnold. And I think that they're going to trade Sam Darnold. I think they're going to do what the Chiefs did with L'Jarius Sneed, which is they're going to tag Sam Darnold, knowing that there is not a free agent quarterback out there that Kirk Cousins was last year, or, that there's really not a true starter that's going to be available. You have to go with Gardner Minshew or Jameis Winston or Mac Jones or something like that. And so they'll own the market. We're told this is a weak quarterback class. So they'll own the market basically for 6 teams that need a starting quarterback. You're one of them. The Giants would be in there, and the Jets might be in there, though, for Darnold, because he was there. Probably doesn't make a lot of sense. But there are a handful of teams that will be looking, and thus I think that the price to pay to acquire a tagged Sam Darnold is probably your second-round pick. And then after that, because you've used a second-round pick on Sam Darnold, you have to extend him, and he's not going to take a $30 million contract. I mean, he's already going to be on the tag, which is going to be about $52 million. So you're looking at $50 million for Sam Darnold a year, probably on a 3-year deal. So now it's like, well, do I like Sam Darnold enough to give him $150 million and give up the 34th, 35th pick in a draft in order to acquire him? And the answer is no, because there is a difference between elite and better than Tua, which is what I think Sam Darnold is. So in that sense, no. If Darnold goes into free agency and there's not a big market for him, and you could get Darnold for the Baker Mayfield 3-year, $30 million, sure, I'd be interested in that. But again, I think what you're getting with Sam Darnold is what the Lions have got with Jared Goff. And when the Lions had no team around Jared Goff was terrible. When the Lions got a great team around Jared Goff's great. And I think Darnold can be something similar. Well, you had that. That was Ryan Tannehill. And so I don't think, again, this is a search for an elite quarterback, and that's not Sam Darnold. And even though he's only 27, he's not going to become that. And I'm certainly not giving up the second-round pick in order to acquire a quarterback that I know isn't elite.
Remind me of the question again.
Should the Titans pursue, or would it be a good idea for the Titans to pursue Sam Darnold? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jared laid it out well. I don't really disagree with any of that. I mean, I would say, sure, pursue, sure. I think I would say no to very little when it comes to quarterback in terms of should pursue. But I generally agree with what Jared said there.
Daniel Jones.
I understand. Yeah, not him. And I'm not, I'm not big on Justin Fields either. I just don't think it's quite there with him. I mean, with Darnold, yeah, I agree for sure on Goff. And Goff is a great example of how, although quarterback is the most important position, Jared Goff, I mean, Kirk Cousins is another guy too. If you give them good conditions, they will see the field. They'll deliver it accurately. They will be prolific. If you give them any sort of conditions that are difficult, like Patrick Mahomes has navigated, and it doesn't matter, then they will crumble. And I don't think that Darnold is in the class of those guys. He has had a very nice year this year. I credit Jared for, being consistent and liking him. I think he was on his way to comeback player of the year. He may still get it. He is looking a little bit like. Wait,
the
why can't he qualify?
The boo-hooers at the AP changed the rule last year when DeMar Hamlin lost to Joe Flacco. So you have to be injured in order to, or like somebody has to die or something in order for you to win the award.
What?
They have said that Sam Darnold is ineligible to win the Comeback Player of the Year award.
Why?
All right.
Because again, they cried, the AP writers, the ones that voted on this, cried that DeMar Hamlin didn't win and Joe Flacco did. And they were like, well, we got to change the rule. Even though, I don't know, maybe Joe Flacco played better than DeMar Hamlin last year. I don't, whatever. But, yeah. So,
yeah, but I mean, that's a pretty extreme circumstance. I don't think we need to be changing rules over something that is so extreme. But,
don't get mad at me. I didn't change it.
I missed that, and that's weird. Bottom line, he's had a really nice year. I think we are seeing a little bit, recently, a little bit of the complaint with him is he will he'll turn it over sometimes and give you some head scratchers. I don't think he's on the level of, like Goff and those guys have done a lot. Tannehill did a lot more than he has ever done, but he's a nice player. I'm not against looking into it if it could work out.
Well, one thing I will say, though,
they don't have a good situation.
The one thing I will say, though, about Darnold, that Gentry asked this, you got to give him credit because Gentry's on this too. He was 4-2 as a starter in Carolina that last year after Tepper had fired Matt Rule and stopped caring about the team. And Darnold and DJ Moore almost got them into the playoffs single-handedly. And he had a higher QBR that year than Aaron Rodgers. And I just felt like, he was showing progress. And that's why I think, again, if you give him DJ Moore, if you put him on a team where it's not coached by Adam Gase and his best receiver isn't some, bum, he's pretty good. But you have to have those good things around him. And unfortunately, I'm not exactly sure Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan are putting those together right now. So I think it'd be hard for me to see him having similar success. Caroline, what's next?
Okay, so, this quarterback class isn't shaping up to be great. Quinn Ewers is always hurt. Carson Beck constantly turns the ball over, and he's terrible. Dane Brugler and Mel Kiper had less than glowing reviews about Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. So, Jared, you go first. Should Titans fans be concerned about this quarterback class and how low some of the draft gurus are on this QB class?
I think they should be really concerned about it if they think that what's going to save Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan's jobs is drafting Jaden Daniels. That's, I think it told me what I
would
needed
have saved
to know.
their jobs.
And that's the point, though, is that, I think there are Titan fans that are like, well, Shedeur Sanders is going to be the answer. And it's he's not CJ Stroud and he's not Jaden Daniels. So if that's the expectation, you're going to be really disappointed by that. And so I think that's kind of the problem. And the other thing, too, that I really don't like is if you let Carthon and Callahan draft the young quarterback, because that seems to be the get out of jail free card here, is the hope that they draft the young superstar quarterback. And what is more likely than not is that quarterback's going to struggle going through some growing pains. And, they don't have a right tackle, and I'm not exactly sure they're going to get one if they use the first pick on a quarterback. At that point, then you're going to fire them, and then the next GM is going to inherit these guys, and the next GM and the next coach are going to say, oh, we love Cam Ward. And then as soon as it goes to pot, it'll be, well, they didn't draft Cam Ward, because we've only seen that here over the last however many years, 10 times. Oh, yeah, Mike, I love to work with Mike Mularkey. I hate Mike Mularkey. So we've seen that far too often. And I don't want to be in that situation. So to answer your question, yeah, I think it's a bad thing that this is the year that you stink. This is the year you need a quarterback. Your GM and coach, if they keep their jobs, are going to have to draft a young quarterback to say, watch us develop this young guy, even though they've not done well with this young guy. And I don't think these guys are good enough. And with Shedeur, you bring the Deion circus to town, which I don't necessarily like either. So yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, they should be concerned. It's not the right year to be at the top of the draft. It's not as bad as it was 2 years ago. But and I like Shedeur Sanders. I probably like him the most. But he's not a generational prospect. Cam Ward at times he is absolutely dazzling to watch. And then it's kind of like with Levis sometimes with some of the death picks and just what are you doing? And some guys can sort of get that out of their game and some can't. I'm intrigued by Jalen Milroe in terms of just, again, as maybe someone where you do something a little bit different offensively, maybe something like the Ravens did with Lamar Jackson. I mean, I see the parallel there just because he is, and sorry to bring this up, Caroline, but, we just saw what he did to LSU. I mean, it really is absurd what he can do as a runner. And I think
it's absurd what he can do as a runner against LSU's defense.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not like this is out of nowhere. I mean,
I'm joking.
He is, especially against LSU's defense, though. But
but the UT game left a real bad taste in my mouth on Milroe.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of. Yeah, I mean, he's far from a perfect prospect. I mean, I might be as intrigued in him as anything, though. Like if I was, resolved to take a quarterback, but I mean, it's not a good draft for it. And so with this team, if you can find a good veteran answer, and then you use your draft to build around that quarterback, to me, that's the better scenario. And the question is, can you? And also, who is, is this the same front office? There's that question too.
I actually feel better if it's not the same front office because they could take a guy and let him.
You don't say. Really?
Well, I'm just saying.
I'm shocked.
This team can't, this front office can't take a guy and let him sit. And I wonder if Cam Ward might need to sit a little bit. He's played a lot of football in college, which is good, but
he's
I like what the Patriots have done with Drake May, right? Like Drake May had a whole training camp and a whole preseason, and he sat for a month and a half. And now Drake May can throw interceptions, and it's like, who cares? They're developing the young quarterback. Nobody's on the hot seat. This is great. If they had Drake May, the Titans, it'd be like, well, they're going to fire everybody because Drake May threw 2 picks and you lost. So, I mean, I guess that's just me. Caroline, who wins this week?
So Jared wins this week, and here is why. That exact point about trust.
Fire.
Let me explain. Joe, now is my time to talk. You've run your trap enough for the last 30 minutes. Thank you. The point of trust in the front office to make one of the most, if not the most pivotal decisions in recent history of the Tennessee Titans. And that is picking at the top of the draft, selecting the future of your franchise, or making the decision to trade back and collect picks and hope that there's a better quarterback draft moving down over the next couple of years. I do not trust this front office to do that, nor do I think that there are a lot of people that have a whole lot of trust in this front office to do that. So that is the reason why I would fire this front office. And I think that's a very important point. That's probably the most important thing right now is, do you trust them to make the most important decision that has faced this franchise in a very long time? The answer to me is no.
All right.
Next week, I want Jared to stop talking around it. Stop talking around it, and let's have it. You gonna fire Burnett or Trotz or not? Let's go. That's next week on Jared versus Joe. Let's do it.
I'm not firing Andrew Burnett right now, and I'm not firing Barry Trotz right now.
Okay, you're kind of talking around it, man. I don't know. Think about it a little bit more. Unless it's firing,
that's the opposite of talking around it, Joe. I just told you.
No, think about it a little bit more, buddy. I think you need to think on it. All right, we'll talk next week.
That would be talking around it. I'm telling you, no, I'm not firing Andrew Burnett right now, and I'm not firing Barry Trotz right now. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Paul Koharski has banned me from listening to him on Robbie and Rex Road, but there's a specific reason why. And there's one thing that Paul wants you to do, and I have a theory that I've shared with why that is, but there is something he wants you to do that I do not think you should do. We'll do next. Someone to Company 105 the game.
By the way, someone's ripping you for you trying to separate Brinker. You trying to protect your little guy Brinker? Is that what you're doing?
Brinker
over
is
here?
not my guy.
That's your
Here's
boy?
what I'll say about
That's
Brinker.
your boy. Go
Brinker's
ahead. Defend your boy. Go ahead.
Brinker's unknown. And Brinker, to me, is a normal guy. Like, he can answer a question. He can talk.
I don't see him doing any pressers.
Well, he's not doing pressers either.
Okay.
I'd like him to be more available, but I've requested him. I've been granted him, and I've sat down with him, and he's answered questions competently.
So he's your
without
best friend,
putting
and
his
you're
foot
defending
in
him.
his mouth.
That'll make sense.
He's a normal guy, kind of like Callahan. Ran, when asked questions, says, oh, well, let's not talk about Tajay Spears' knee on the day he's drafted. It's the most important day of his life. Brinker doesn't strike me as that kind of guy. So Brinker gets a little bit more of a chance from me.
That was Paulie Paul talking about his buddy Chad Brinker, saying, no, let's separate them. Let's not put them together. And let me just say this. I want to nip this in the bud real quick. They have to be together. Because Chad Brinker's title is President of Football Operations. And Chad Brinker, it has been told to me by the Titans that ran reports to Chad. It's been told to me, again, by the Titans. Now, they could deny that they said it, but I'm pretty sure it's in a text message. Ran reports to Chad. And so what I think Paul's trying to do is he's trying to distance for the public ran from Chad. I don't want that. I mean, you got to decide right now. Are you sticking with what, and you don't have to decide it right now, but at the end of the year, you got to decide, are you sticking with what you've been doing that's led you to the worst team in the league? Or are you going to go in a completely different direction? And my thing is, if you stick with what you're doing, and I hope you don't, then they both come back. And they both have the same jobs, and the ambiguity and the bull crap and the terrible podcasts that don't say anything except things like, hope is what was it that Ian, that Brinker said? Hope is a powerful thing, and we hope the fans see that.
Something like that.
Yeah, hope is a powerful thing.
Although, as our friend Corey Curtis likes to say, hope is not a strategy.
Yeah, well, not according to Chad Brinker, who, again, Paul thinks is a regular guy and answers questions and drinks cold Miller Lite, whatever. But again, either they both stay or they both, fingers crossed, go. Because no good general manager worth a grain of salt, no good general manager is going to want to take the job where they have to report to Chad Brinker and nobody knows exactly what Chad Brinker does. And, again, I don't even know technically, Rand said that contractually he has final say of the roster. So I guess I got to assume that that's the case. But the way the Titans, sometimes construct the narrative is that Chad Brinker handles all the other parts of the job, right? The team security, the facility maintenance, the field, all the different things, the PR department, the IT department, etc. That's great. But most general managers, when they take jobs, they expect to be in charge of those things. Like Terry Porch, I don't know if he still does the field maintenance, but he did for forever. He worked for Floyd Reese. Haas, the equipment guy, who was around for 40 years until Mike Vrabel got a stick up his ass and fired him for no reason. Haas worked for Floyd Reese. The PR department, hired by Floyd Reese. Like that's the general manager's job. That is general managering. But again, Rand Carthon didn't want to do that, so he doesn't do it. So I guess that's what Brinker does. Well, if you go get Rick Spielman's going to want to do the job that the general manager does. He's not going to have to deal with Chad Brinker when it comes to doing those things. So either they both stay or they both go. 615-737-1025, Stillman & Company, 1025 The Game.
the most interesting name that has been brought up to me as the top half of the draft order starts to shape up is Sam Darnold. Why? The answer is because Sam Darnold right now is the best free agent quarterback in the 2025 class. Sam Darnold is under contract just this year with Minnesota. Minnesota used its first-round pick. They traded up to number 10 overall to grab J.J. McCarthy. We know that quarterbacks are often rushed into the NFL sooner than they need to be, but it's also not great business to take a guy 10th overall and sit him for multiple seasons. The Vikings have been kind of planning for a discounted quarterback starting next year after spending a lot of money on Kirk Cousins and then bridging the gap this year with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold's going to get paid by somebody. And if you look around the NFL, some of the most obvious teams that Sam Darnold could become appealing to are in the top 10 of picks right now. Maybe Carolina would not go down that road because he has been in Carolina. It did not work out for Sam Darnold in Carolina. How about the Titans, though, in Tennessee? How about the Giants, the other New York team? Somebody's going to play their chip, and somebody might well play their chip on Sam Darnold. And all of a sudden, one of the teams that's going to need a quarterback in the top 10 is no longer going to need a quarterback because Sam Darnold might get a Baker Mayfield-like contract of 3 years and $100 or $105 or $110 million based off of how he has played so far this season.
There you go. That was Field Yates talking about Sam Darnold as a bridge quarterback. Jeremy Fowler used the Titans as a spot where he thinks Sam Darnold ends up. Let me say this. Tomorrow on the program, I have a quarterback who I think the Titans, who I would give a chance to try to reclaim. And I was right about Sam Darnold. There is a quarterback that I think the Titans should try to reclaim, who I would consider bringing in here as either a starter next year, a bridge guy, a backup, if you draft Shedeur Sanders, whatever. I have a name, and I can tell you this right now. You're going to hate it. Stillman and Company. We'll see everybody tomorrow. 2 Vandy basketball at 6:30 tonight. 102.5, 106.3 The Game.